Chapter 340. Ling Han had two spiritual oceans in his body, one at the bottom as earth and one at the top as heaven, symbolizing yin and yang. When he used origin power, he could selectively move one of the two spiritual oceans, but if necessary, both spiritual oceans could operate at the same time, one yin and one yang, opposing each other, yet able to gush out terrifying spirit power, allowing his power to soar to the seventh layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Against a nobody like Xiao Hongcheng, he obviously didn't need to go all out. The rotation of the Earth's spiritual ocean was enough to support enough power. He mainly comprehended the minute changes of the War Elephant Fist to improve his fist path. All methods in the world lead to the same goal, so he could cultivate 7 flashes of sword chi, which also meant he could reach the level of 7 flashes of fist chi. However, this required a process, and now that he was fighting Xiao Hongcheng, he was shortening this process. Die, die, die. Xiao Hongcheng was like a madman. The 1-hour time limit was approaching, but he was still fighting with Ling Han, which meant that he and Ling Han were both going to be eliminated. This made him furious, feeling that Ling Han was extremely hateful. He obviously couldn't beat him, so why did he have to fight with him like this? Die your sister. Ling Han roared and punched out fiercely. 4 flashes of fist chi burst forth, turning into 4 silver fists that evolved into 4 dragons and elephants, crushing towards Xiao Hongcheng. What? Everyone cried out in shock. Was this a breakthrough in battle? If it was true, then this guy was too terrifying. To be able to turn pressure into motivation in battle and break through oneself, he was definitely a genius among geniuses. Impossible, this guy probably cultivated 4 flashes of fist chi long ago, but he was hiding it before, and only now did it burst out to purposely scare people. He wants people to think he broke through in battle to attract the sex attention. He's really scheming. Truly too naive. Everyone shook their heads. They were all conceited, but even they might not be able to achieve such a breakthrough, so they naturally subconsciously thought it was fake. Otherwise, wouldn't that mean they were inferior to the other? However, there were also a few people who revealed thoughtful expressions. What if it was true? Thankfully, it was only 4 flashes of fist chi, and he just stepped into the level of great accomplishment, not yet qualified to be called a king. Boom 4 fist chi to 3 fist chi was like the suppression of the 4th level of martial art to the 3rd level. One was in the middle stage, while the other was in the early stage. The difference was huge. As a result, Xiao Hongcheng was sent flying along with his sword when his fist smashed down. About an hour had passed. The 10 people ranked in the 30s all had their eyes on Ling Han. This guy had just experienced an evenly matched battle and had no time to recover. If they could pick on Ling Han, it would be the same as picking on a soft persimmon. Xiao Hongcheng lay on the ground, his face filled with disbelief. He was so unlucky to have met an opponent who had a breakthrough just before the battle. Top 30, step out, the spiritual pedestal tier elite said. Begin the next round. Shua, a girl with a graceful figure, was the fastest, and arrived in front of Ling Han before the others. Then, she smiled charmingly at the people around her, and said, "Little sister, thanks all the brothers for letting me win." This was a very beautiful girl, and added with her alluring figure, people couldn't help but take a few more glances. When she leapt out earlier, she deliberately twisted her hips and puffed out her chest, showing off her figure to the fullest, causing the other 9 people to involuntarily stare at her. That was how they managed to snatch the soft persimmon Ling Han. The other 9 people all secretly cursed their bad luck. Who asked them to have lustful thoughts? Admit defeat obediently. That girl attacking towards Ling Han. She was stronger than Xiao Hongcheng, at the 3rd layer of the spiritual ocean tier. However, if it was just that, she obviously couldn't rival Ling Han, who had 6 stars of battle prowess. Since she dared to pick on Ling Han, she obviously had something to rely on. She unleashed an exquisite pagoda the moment she attacked. It was entirely made of jade, and vein-like patterns shone, forming visible ripples that surged towards Ling Han. Ling Han immediately felt that small pagoda emitted an extremely disgusted divine sense. This divine sense obviously wasn't directed at him, but at the exquisite pagoda. This tool spirit was quite interesting. Couldn't stand other pagoda-shaped spirit tools. When, the ripples were like a tsunami, surging violently. Ling Han punched at empty air, forming a vein-like pattern in front of him that quickly spread out like a shield, protecting him behind. The ripples emitted by the exquisite pagoda surged over, creating layers of ripples, and cracks immediately appeared on the vein-like pattern. When this shield shattered, the attack emitted by the exquisite pagoda also ended. That girl couldn't help but be shocked. The power used in this punch was a bit too coincidental, not a bit more, not a bit less, as if he'd exchanged blows with her before. But this moment wasn't the time for her to be shocked. She immediately shook the pagoda lightly, releasing a ripple, and at the same time, she pounced out, drawing her sword to attack. Shio, 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 4 flashes of sword light spread out, their might oppressive. As expected, the reason she could reach this stage wasn't because of the might of the spirit tool, but because she herself possessed shocking strength. Ling Han faced her, continuing to use her opponent to practice the war elephant fist. Some people paid attention to Ling Han, and couldn't help but reveal surprised expressions, because this girl's strength was obviously stronger than Zhao Hongcheng's, but Ling Han could still fight back and forth, not falling into a disadvantage at all. In other words, Ling Han had held back his strength before. Since that was the case, could it be that this wasn't Ling Han's full strength? If he can enter the next round, I'll choose him as my opponent, a man with an imposing appearance said. His cultivation of the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier was extremely extraordinary. Senior brother you actually has the intent to fight against a mere 1st layer spiritual ocean tier. Someone laughed, but immediately revealed a doubtful expression. Senior brother you, aren't you thinking too highly of him? Senior brother you revealed a trace of a smile, his eyes flashing with the flames of battle. No, my feeling isn't wrong, this brat is worth a fight. Che. The 7 sons of Ao family snorted at the same time, appearing very displeased. 7 sons of Ao family, what are you snorting about? Are you looking for a beating? Senior brother you walked over, his face showing undisguised disgust. You've lost to me. Ao Jiancheng shook his finger, appearing very disapproving. You Kai-yu, when you can defeat the 7th, then come challenge us again. Ao Xinglai said. Ao Jiancheng wasn't the youngest among the 7 sons of Ao family, but because he was the weakest, he was ranked last. Hearing Ao Xinglai's words, Ao Jiancheng couldn't help but reveal a hint of anger. The competition within the Ao family was fierce, and he wasn't willing to sit in the 7th position. Yu Kai-yu said, when I advance into the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, I'll challenge you all one by one. You speak as if you're very powerful. Ao Fengxing picked his ear, then blew on his finger, his disdain evident in his words. Chapter 341. The relationship between the Ao family and the Yu family had never been on good terms. The old people naturally knew why, but the newcomers didn't understand, only thinking that the 2 grand elders, Ao and Yu, didn't agree, which caused the younger generation to fight fiercely. They didn't know that because of a love feud from nearly 20 years ago, the 2 families that should have become in-laws completely walked on opposite sides. But no matter how much they didn't get along, it wouldn't be too stiff in public. After all, the Yu and Ao family each had a grand elder, but in the descendants of the 2 families, although the Ao family also had many incompetent people, who asked Ao Feng to plant seeds everywhere and produce more, there would always be a few geniuses. And now, the probability was a bit shocking, reaching as many as 7 people, all of them stronger than Yu Kai-yu. Obviously, in the competition of the next generation, the Ao family won, and with an overwhelming advantage. If Ling Han knew, he'd definitely sneer, is that so? If Ao Feng's sons all died one by one, then what's the use of being a genius? In the field, Ling Han's punches were like rain, and his fist speed became faster and faster. The fifth flash of fist chi was almost fully formed and was about to surge out. This gave the woman enormous pressure, and she could only activate the exquisite pagoda as much as possible. However, this spirit tool's strongest power was only comparable to the seventh layer of the spiritual ocean tier, so how could it pose a threat to Ling Han? Just as the hour was about to end, Ling Han swung out a heavy punch, sending the woman flying with 5 flashes of fist chi. Hiss! This time, quite a few people were truly shocked. Even if Ling Han had already grasped 5 flashes of fist chi and was only hiding it before, the significance of 5 flashes of fist chi itself was extraordinary. Moreover, Ling Han clearly fought continuously for an hour, but he could still persist in a high-intensity confrontation for an hour. Such tenacity was truly terrifying. This boy couldn't be underestimated. Ling Han stood solemnly and fought continuously for 2 hours, but with the size of his dantian and spiritual ocean, this kind of consumption wasn't even 1%. Otherwise, he wouldn't fight in such a way. Che, he wasn't stupid. Rank 21 to 30, step forward. The spiritual pedestal tier elite's tone was calm and emotionless. Yu Kai-yu strode in front of Ling Han and said, "You can rest now. When you've recovered, we'll fight again." Many people scolded him for being stupid after he said that. Only an idiot would not take advantage of such an opportunity. Now, it even involved the top 10 places. Even if they couldn't get first place, they would still be able to obtain rewards like medicinal pills. Who wouldn't give it their all? Was it because he was too strong that he was so confident? He knows that it's impossible for him to defeat the 7 sons of the Ao clan, so he might as well pretend to be generous. Anyway, with the 7 of us here, he can only be ranked 8th at most, Ao Jian said, appearing extremely disdainful. Because the battle between spiritual ocean tier warriors was extremely destructive, everyone was watching the battle from over 100 meters away. At this distance, coupled with the noise of the battle, it was very difficult to hear what they were saying. Therefore, Ling Han did not know that the person in front of him was called Yu Kai-yu, and Yu Kai-yu did not hear Ao Jian's slander. Because of this sentence, Ling Han's favorable impression of Yu Kai-yu increased greatly. He cupped his fists and said, "How should I address senior brother?" Yu Kai-yu. Ling Han was startled. Surnamed Yu, could he be Yu Zhinshan's son? He asked probingly, "I wonder how Yu Zhinshan and attendant Yu are related to brother Yu?" "It's my father." Yu Kai-yu was not surprised. He was Yu Zhinshan's son, and this kind of thing was known by any disciple of the Winter Moon sect. It was not a secret. As expected, this was his cousin. Ling Han laughed inwardly, thinking to himself, "Cousin, oh cousin, who asked your old man to not stop Ao Feng, causing his old man's spirit base to be destroyed, causing their family to be separated from each other. Today, I'll first beat up this cousin, and in the future, I'll hang up and beat up uncle, and this grudge will be settled." There was no overnight enmity in a family. For normal people, this was disgraceful and heresy. How could a nephew hang up and beat his uncle? However, the soul that controlled this body was the Alchemy Emperor from 10,000 years ago. Although he admitted his current identity, it did not mean that his every word and action was restricted by this identity. If he was displeased, then he'd vent his anger. No need to rest, let's fight. Ling Han crooked his finger. I have the cultivation of the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, 1 foot into the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and I also cultivate 3 black-grade high-level martial arts techniques. If you don't adjust to your best condition, you definitely won't be my match. Yu Kai-yu said unhappily. I want to defeat you in your best condition, not just 1 victory. Why must I satisfy you? Who do you think you are? Ling Han laughed and charged out, initiating an attack. Yu Kai-yu snorted and casually threw a punch. He wanted to let Ling Han know the gap between them, and he would then give Ling Han time to rest, allowing the 2 of them to fight as fairly as possible. Ling Han did not show weakness, and also threw a punch. Pang! The two of them collided, and immediately, a visible shock wave spread out. Peng, 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 peng. The couples on the side were actually quite far away, but they were still pushed back by the shock wave, rushing towards them in shock, not even caring about the battle anymore. Yu Kaiyu was shocked. The power of Ling Han's punch wasn't much inferior to his. He had the cultivation of the peak of the 8th layer of the gushing spring tier, so his power was tyrannical, but he actually couldn't suppress a 1st layer gushing spring tier cultivator. The other's spirit tool was truly tyrannical. Ling Han smiled, and said, "Senior brother Yu, come, let me beat you up, and we'll be good friends from now on." There was a deeper meaning behind his words. After this fight, they were on the same side. However, Yu Kaiyu didn't know who Ling Han was, and couldn't help but feel annoyed. This guy actually said he wanted to beat him up. Damn it, where did his courage come from, and where did his confidence come from? He gave a long howl, and launched an attack at Ling Han. This time, he was enraged, and used his martial arts technique. His fists instantly became pitch black like iron, glowing with a metallic cold light. As he punched out, his martial will bloomed, and a line of vein-like patterns immediately lit up on his right fist, forming strange patterns that instantly expanded to his entire arm. It was as if his entire right arm had turned into a spiritual weapon. As he punched out, the air was pushed and pressed towards Ling Han, forming a visible gust of wind. The one surnamed Yu's fist technique has greatly improved, Ao Jianqing said, frowning slightly. Ao Fengxing nodded, and said, if his power goes up another level, he might really be able to pose a threat to us. Ao Xinglai smiled proudly. His power had already surpassed the other 7 by a large margin. These 6 people were truly frogs in the well, completely unaware of how strong they were, making wild guesses. Chapter 342. Ling Han went up to face Yu Kaiyu in a great battle. He also used War Elephant Fist, not planning to hold back at all. 5 flashes of fist chi erupted, and one punch could strike out 4 light silver dragon elephants, emitting an ancient aura of desolation as they charged towards Yu Kaiyu. Dragon elephants were divine beasts from ancient times, and had completely disappeared tens of thousands of years ago, leaving only legends. However, Dragon Elephant's power was unquestionable, able to topple mountains and overturn seas, and even split the sky and earth. However, the true Dragon Elephant was completely golden and had the body of a wild elephant. With a sweep of its trunk, even a true dragon could only be strangled to death. On its head grew dragon horns that could prop up the sky, and its 4 limbs were like stone pillars that could suppress the earth. The dragon elephant that Ling Han shot out now was only light silver, and only had the shape of a wild elephant, without dragon horns, so its power was naturally far from that of a true dragon elephant. However, this also made Ling Han quite surprised. If this fist art was developed to the extreme and could form a true dragon elephant, then how powerful would the power of this punch be? As expected, those 6 heaven-tier guys from the previous life all had shocking origins, and this fist art definitely wasn't simple. However, Ling Han had a vague feeling that the fist art he obtained wasn't complete. If he continued to develop it like this, it could at most reach Earth grade, and couldn't become a heaven grade martial arts technique, not to mention leaping into God grade. From this point of view, Sword Emperor was still the most practical. 3 styles of black origin only needed to grasp Sword Chi, Sword Ray, and Sword Heart, and he could use them one by one. If that guy, Nalan too, didn't die and entered the God realm, he'd definitely beat him up if he had the chance in the future. As Ling Han pondered, his battle with Yu Kaiyu became more and more intense. Yu Kaiyu was certainly extraordinary, having the cultivation of the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, but his true battle prowess soared to 14 stars, possessing battle prowess surpassing 6 stars. This was very shocking, causing the expressions of the 7 sons of Ao family to change slightly. The current Yukaiyu could fight to a draw with 6 of them, and only Ao Xinglai could win steadily, but if Yukaiyu advanced to the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, then perhaps Ao Xinglai could only fight to a draw with him. You're wrong. My battle prowess can surpass 7 stars, Ao Xinglai said in his heart. He swept his gaze over them, appearing somewhat disdainful. Although these brothers of his were on the same level as him, his battle prowess was 2 stars higher than theirs, causing him to feel somewhat wronged. The 7 of them should be referred to as 1 dragon and 6 tigers. His strength was much stronger than them, so how could his 6 brothers be qualified to stand side by side with him? However, Ling Han was even more astonished. If his opponent was weak, his performance would be relatively mediocre. But if his opponent was strong, his battle prowess would actually rise accordingly. Yukaiyu's current battle prowess had soared to 14 star, but Ling Han could completely keep up with him and didn't show any signs of being at a disadvantage. How could anyone believe this? Just how strong is this guy? He clearly only had the cultivation of the 1st layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and even if he could also surpass 6 stars, he would only have battle prowess of 7 stars, so how could he match Yukaiyu, who had 14-star battle prowess? Could it be that the spirit tool on him could increase his battle prowess by another 7 stars? Yukaiyu roared continuously. Even if Ling Han used a spirit tool, he, an expert at the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, still couldn't suppress someone at the 1st layer of the spiritual ocean tier, which he couldn't accept. He obviously had spirit tools, even spirit talismans, and medicinal pills that could increase battle prowess for a short period of time, but he was an extremely proud person. He already had such a huge advantage in cultivation, and still wanted to use external objects like spirit tools. Then what was the point of him winning? It would only be a loss of face. He held his breath and continued to fight with Ling Han. Hey, this year's newcomers are too strong, even senior brother you can't suppress them. If both of them are eliminated, it would really be a joke, a disciple of the Winter Moon sect said. Isn't that good? There just happens to be one more spot. True, those who can suppress senior brother you, among those under 30, are only the 7 sons of Ao family. That guy called Sword of Justice over there is also very strong, only at the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, but his battle prowess is at least 12 stars, truly shocking. Didn't you guys hear what Grand Elder Shur said? The martial art is in a super flourishing age now, with geniuses emerging endlessly. In the future, a freak with battle prowess surpassing 10 stars might appear. The surrounding people discussed animatedly, and as more and more people were eliminated, the remaining people became more and more dazzling. Senior brother Yu, many thanks, Ling Han suddenly said without rhyme or reason. Yukaiyu had no idea what he was talking about, and was about to berate him when he saw Ling Han throw a punch. 6 flashes of fist chi burst forth, transforming into a total of 7 dragons and elephants, charging towards him. What? He was shocked. It was actually 6 flashes of fist chi, which already reached the level of great accomplishment, and was about to step into the ranks of true kings. This was too terrifying. One had to know that he only grasped 6 flashes of fist chi, and 7 flashes was a natural chasm that had stuck him for more than 4 years, never able to step into the realm of a king with 7 flashes. This, many thanks, was because under Yukaiyu's pressure, Ling Han quickly achieved a breakthrough. Of course, this was mainly because he already grasped 7 flashes of sword chi, or else no matter how much of a genius he was, he wouldn't be able to achieve a breakthrough so easily. These 6 flashes of fist chi shot out, plus War Elephant Fist, and Ling Han gradually gained the upper hand. His strength was originally no weaker than Yukaiyu's, and now he wasn't at a disadvantage in terms of the number of fist chi. His martial arts skills were even stronger than Yukaiyu's, and with heaven-tier vision, if he still didn't gain the upper hand, then he really should find a piece of tofu and smash himself to death. Hung, he threw one punch after another, like a savage from the wilderness, completely unreasonable, using iron fists to crush everything. Flashes of martial arts will exploded, the light dazzling. Yu Kaiyu retreated again and again. With his current battle prowess, he was no longer a match. He hesitated whether to take out his spirit tool, because Ling Han had, obviously, already used it. But thinking that he had such a great advantage in terms of cultivation level, enough to make up for the spirit tool, and that the two sides were fighting fairly, if he used his spirit tool, then it wouldn't be in line with the fair battle he was seeking. Before he finished his thought, his face had already taken a heavy punch, and his whole person was instantly sent flying. He felt his face go numb, and there was even a burning taste in his throat. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood, and there were actually 3 broken teeth. Ling Han flew over, but extended his hand to Yu Kaiyu, and said with a smile, "We're even, and from now on we'll be good brothers." Yu Kaiyu only thought that this good brother referred to fellow disciples, and couldn't help but touch his cheek, saying, "You hit me with such a heavy punch, and still want to be brothers with me?" Ling Han chuckled, took out a pill bottle, and said, "This is the Restore Spirit pill." Yu Kaiyu's eyes instantly became fiery. The Restore Spirit pill was the highest level for medicinal pills. It couldn't increase cultivation level, and couldn't replenish origin power. It only had one function: solidify one's cultivation level. Chapter 343. Ling Han indeed decided to certify as a heaven-grade alchemist on a spur of the moment. An 18-year-old heaven-grade alchemist was really too dazzling, and he still hadn't established his own force. For example, if the Winter Moon sect and the Beast Emperor sect secretly abducted him, imprisoned him, and forced him to concoct alchemical pills, what would he do? On the surface, no one would dare to harm a heaven-grade alchemist, but in private, he. After all, there were only 2 heaven-grade alchemists in the whole vast lands. Ling Han had the Black Tower, which was indeed enough to protect himself, but if the secret of the Black Tower was leaked, he might encounter even more trouble. Didn't the Thousand Corpse sect have their eyes on him now? However, for the sake of his father, Ling Han chose to act on impulse. He definitely had to obtain the 9-leaf black Ganoderma and concoct the Restore Spirit pill. The problem now was, would he be able to concoct a heaven-grade alchemical pill? After all, he only had the cultivation of the spiritual pedestal tier, and theoretically, he could at most concoct an earth-grade mid-level alchemical pill. If he added in the strange fire, then earth-grade high-level alchemical pill wouldn't be a problem, but heaven-grade was uncertain. He could only hope that Xiaohua had been trained hard enough in the Black Tower, and his strength had improved greatly. Otherwise, he really might fail. Face was secondary, the key was that he couldn't snatch the 9-leaf black Ganoderma back. Ling Han put away his random thoughts, and took out a stalk of Spirit Heart Heaven Spring Bamboo from the Black Tower. This was a kind of spirit medicine that could be used to concoct the most commonly seen Return Origin pill to replenish origin power. However, the Spirit Heart Heaven Spring Bamboo could be used to concoct a high-grade Return Origin pill. A 10-year-old one could allow a spiritual infant tier cultivator to instantly recover 1/10 of their origin power, a 100-year-old one could be effective on a deity transformation tier cultivator, and a 1,000-year-old one could be effective on a heaven tier cultivator. Ling Han had obtained a 100-year-old Spirit Heart Heaven Spring Bamboo in the Devil Sky Mystery Realm, and after close to a year's nurturing by the Black Tower, it had now reached 1,000 years old, and could be used to concoct the highest grade Return Origin pill. For heaven tier cultivators, it was naturally a heaven-grade alchemical pill. Though heaven-grade alchemical pills were also divided into 3 grades, high, medium, and low, because the grade was too high, heaven-grade low level was directly called heaven-grade medium level was saint-grade, and heaven-grade high level was immortal grade. Saint-grade alchemical pills could be effective on Shattering Void tier cultivators, and immortal-grade alchemical pills truly did not belong to this world. In his last life, Ling Han had been able to concoct saint-grade alchemical pills, and he also had some knowledge of immortal-grade alchemical pills. He had even found some substitutes and concocted demigod-grade alchemical pills, which also proved that his talent in alchemy was unparalleled in both ancient and modern times, and extremely awesome. The title of Alchemy Emperor was not achieved through flattery, but through genuine ability and knowledge. Those two heaven-grade alchemists in the middle state should be heaven-grade low-level alchemists, and there was a huge gap in the inheritance of alchemy. This was completely unrelated to whether the environment of martial arts was prosperous or not, and it was completely impossible for them to become saint-grade alchemists. Though heaven-grade return origin pill was the most ordinary, most trashy heaven-grade alchemical pill, no matter how ordinary or trashy it was still a heaven-grade alchemical pill. It was something that no earth-grade alchemist could concoct, and it was enough for him to pass the certification. More importantly, he did not have any other heaven-grade materials. Spirit Heart Heaven Spring Bamboo was the main ingredient, but he also needed some supplementary ingredients. He manipulated it like moving clouds and flowing water, causing all those alchemists outside to stare in shock. So it turned out that the sorting of materials could also be done in such an elegant manner, and even filled with beauty. Meanwhile, Zhu Xian'er's heart was thumping wildly. Though she was known as the #1 beauty of the North region, and the strongest of the younger generation, to talk to a heaven-grade alchemist was really a fantasy. There were only 2 heaven-grade alchemists in the whole middle state, and this status was practically comparable to an ultimate warrior of Shattering Void tier. Did she have the right to talk to a Shattering Void tier elite? Of course not. Thus, Tang Zhu Ming's threat and temptation were actually very real. If he wanted to ask the 2 heaven-grade alchemists to concoct alchemical pills for him, then the most effective method would be to ask their descendants for help. Otherwise, he could only wait until Zhu Xian'er had grown to the extent that even heaven-grade alchemists would have to give her face. Shattering Void tier. Putting aside the question of whether or not Zhu Xian'er would be able to reach Shattering Void tier, even if she could, that would be a matter of when and how long it would take. But if Ling Han could become a heaven-grade alchemist, Zhu Xian'er's heart could not help but thump wildly. She should be considered Ling Han's friend, right? Since they were friends, then it should not be too difficult for her to help him, right? At that moment, she incomparably hoped that Ling Han could succeed. Meanwhile, Tang Zhu Ming smirked coldly. There were a total of 27 Earth-grade high-level alchemists in the middle state, and in these 100 years, they had all been charging towards the threshold of heaven-grade alchemist, but in the end, no one had been able to cross over. Why? This step was really too difficult. An 18-year-old youngster also wanted to succeed, he was really too naive. However, he was still very astonished by Ling Han's technique, because he was also a genius of alchemy. He was already a black-grade high-level alchemist at the age of 20, which was enough to show how extraordinary he was. Ling Han's technique was really too experienced, causing him to feel ashamed of his own inferiority. He even had the thought of secretly learning from Ling Han, but looking at those dazzling movements, he completely did not know where to start secretly learning from. At first, there had been some noise outside, but at this moment, it had become absolutely silent. They were all quietly watching Ling Han, and that kind of charm actually caused a strong resonance to arise within them, as if there was something that was about to surge out from within their bodies. After sorting out the ingredients, Ling Han once again entered into the stage of purification. That astonishing technique naturally caused everyone to be shocked and dumbfounded again. A few of them even cried out in surprise, but they were all repeatedly rolled their eyes at by the others. The most important stage had arrived, the concoction of alchemical pills. No matter how pleasing to the eye one's choice of ingredients was, no matter how exquisite the purification of medicinal effects was, if one was unable to concoct the alchemical pill, everything would be useless. Ling Han focused his mind and calmed his heart. He summoned the strange fire, and thought, "Small fire, it's yours now." Hong, a crimson ball of flame suddenly ignited. If one looked closely, there was actually a small ball of purple in the center of the flame, which appeared to be very unusual. Ling Han was surprised. Small fire was indeed very different. Compared to the beginning, small fire had swallowed another ball of strange fire, and its strength had definitely increased greatly, but the greater change should have come from the improvement of the Black Tower, which had truly allowed it to be reborn. There was hope for a heaven-grade alchemical pill. The flames raged, and the light of the flames soared into the skies. No way, with such a fierce fire right from the start, isn't he afraid that he won't be able to control it? That's right, the furnace could explode at any moment. Immediately, a great many people began to shake their heads. Ling Han's skill in sorting out the ingredients and purification made them all sigh in admiration, but his alchemy level, sigh, it was really a bit pitiful. How could such a person become an earth-grade alchemist? Though a great many older and more mature people did not speak, their eyes revealed disappointment. At first, they had thought that Ling Han was aggressive and full of confidence, and had really thought that he had some confidence, but they had not thought that he was just putting on a brave front. Sigh, the other was only a youngster, so why did he have so much confidence in him for no reason? What a joke! The furnace fire was still blazing, and soared straight to the roof, forcing Ling Han to activate the thunder battle armor to resist such high temperature. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, time passed very quickly. How long has it been? Why hasn't the furnace exploded yet? That's right, it's been at least 3 hours, and it should have exploded long ago. Could it be that there's any hope of success? Impossible. I'm guessing that the ingredients he used are not heaven-grade at all, and he is completely faking alchemy. Hey, he can't be so reckless, right? The crowd discussed animatedly, and Tang Zuming simply laughed loudly. How could heaven-grade alchemical pills be so easy to concoct? It had to be that Ling Han had already failed long ago, and was just unwilling to admit defeat no matter what, stubbornly trying to save face. Chapter 344. Before, everyone thought that Ling Han was a chicken, but now, this guy not only became much more ferocious, but was also a god of wealth. Who would want to fight such a person? First of all, they might not be able to beat him. The top 100 ranking had no absolute relationship with strength. For example, Yu Kaiyu's strength was definitely in the top 10, but he only ranked in the 20s in the first round of the exam. Thus, even Yu Kaiyu lost to Ling Han. Other than the 7 sons of Ao family, who else could fight against Ling Han? Besides, even if they won, it might not be good. They would be targeted by Ling Han, and how could they be friends? So, everyone wanted to avoid Ling Han. Anyway, there were 9 other people to challenge. But there would always be an unlucky guy who had to face Ling Han. He smiled embarrassedly, and said, I'm Zheng Yuan, greetings to senior brother Han. There's no need to fight this battle, I admit defeat. Firstly, he really wasn't Ling Han's match, and secondly, he wanted to do Ling Han a favor. Ling Han just smiled faintly, and said, you admit it. Zheng Yuan couldn't help but stare dumbfounded. It was over just like that. He also wanted to be friends with Ling Han. This guy was rich and overbearing, giving 3 bottles of Restore Origin pills at once. It was really scary. In everyone's eyes, Ling Han was probably inseparable from being a fool with a lot of money. Wasn't that so? Giving such a big gift just after getting to know someone, if this wasn't being a fool with a lot of money, then what was? Since that was the case, why not give him a few bottles? He was extremely embarrassed, but he could only walk back, retreating into the crowd. So this guy wasn't stupid. Seeing this scene, everyone said in their minds. After this round, there was only the last round, and the winner would at least advance into the top 10, and could get the reward. But to get first place, they definitely had to go through many battles. After an hour, the second to last round of battles all ended, leaving only 20 people in the field. Among them, the disciples of the Winter Moon sect occupied 14 spots. It could be seen that a large sect was a large sect after all, and indeed had deep roots. However, there were still 6 outsiders who stayed behind, which meant that their strength was quite extraordinary. That was indeed the truth. Some forces didn't establish any sects or factions. They just relied on their families to develop. Their strength couldn't be compared to sects, but after a few generations of accumulation, they still had a rather astonishing amount of cultivation resources. If they focused all of it on one of their descendants, it would be enough to create a genius. Yang Chong, Bai Ming, and Si Chi Meng were among them, and the last two were both males, called Wang Ping and Shi Ji Yuan, both at the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, only slightly inferior to Yu Kai-yu, which was quite shocking. The last round, begin, the spiritual pedestal tier elite said. Hee, which one of you wants to pick that brat? The 7 sons of the AO family asked each other. All of them had their eyes on Ling Han. This kid can't be underestimated. Even Yu Kai-yu lost to him, Eo Jianqing said. That's because Yu Kai-yu was too stupid. He had a spirit tool, but he didn't use it. He insisted on fighting with his bare fists. He lost because of his stupidity, said Ao Feng Xing. That's not necessarily true. He obtained 3 bottles of Restore Spirit pills, which are even more valuable than the Thunder Battle armor. He's not the first, but obtained a medicinal pill that surpasses the first. This is clearly smart. Forget it, if we can avoid him, we'll avoid him first, and play with him in the final ranking battle. Yes. They reached a consensus, but the problem was that even they wanted to avoid Ling Han, not to mention the others. It wasn't like they didn't realize that Yu Kai-yu was no match for him. Thus, when they just stepped out, the other 3 had already found their opponents, and naturally none of them chose Ling Han. In other words, among the 7 of them, one had to fight Ling Han. I'll do it. Ao Jianqing walked out. Okay, then leave it to old 7. That's right. He's merely at the 1st layer of the spiritual ocean tier. If we send the others, it'd be too kind to him. The other 6 sons nodded one after another, then found their own opponents. Admit defeat. Surrender. Ao Jianqing stood in front of Ling Han with his hands behind his back. He lifted his head slightly off the stage, revealing an arrogant expression. Didn't anyone tell you that your mouth stinks? Ling Han snorted. If your mouth stinks, then speak less. You have to insult the air. Come, I'll give you a few good slaps to wake you up. Such an arrogant brat. Ao Jianqing frowned. Where did you get such courage from? Of course it's strength. Ling Han crooked his finger. Bring it on. If I don't beat you into a pig's head, my surname isn't Han. Ha, I'd like to see how you beat me into a pig's head. Ao Jianqing sneered, revealing an awe-inspiring expression. He was truly enraged. Ling Han attacked. This was Ao Feng's son, and during the exam, he was even chased by him. However, he didn't want to unleash the demon birth sword at the time, and there was also a strong warrior watching from the shadows, so it was hard to kill him. Now that he had advanced into the spiritual ocean tier, he truly had the qualifications to fight head-on without relying on external power. Hong, he punched out, and the origin power in the Earth's spiritual ocean surged out, pouring into his fist. The will of martial art was released, forming dazzling vein-like patterns that struck towards Ao Jianqing. Ao Jianqing's expression was stern, and he didn't dare to be careless in the slightest. His opponent could defeat Yu Kai-yu, which meant that his battle prowess was at least 14 stars, which was very shocking. He drew his sword, and with a clang, a cold light as bright as autumn water turned, forming 6 flashes of sword chi, striking towards Ling Han. 6 flashes of sword chi, already accomplished. To be listed as one of the Ao family's 7 sons, even if he was ranked last, Ao Jianqing's strength was indeed incomparably powerful. This was a spirit tool that could increase his battle prowess by 2 stars. The higher one's tier, the lesser the auxiliary effect of spirit tools, medicinal pills, and spirit talismans. This was very obvious. So, the increase of 2 stars of battle prowess was actually quite considerable. Now, Ao Jiancheng's battle prowess shot up to 16 stars, and with a slash, 6 flashes of sword chi crisscrossed, tearing the air apart and forming whirlpools of air that continuously spun. Objectively speaking, Ling Han's cultivation was indeed a shortcoming. His strength was comparable to the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, but Ao Jiancheng was at the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and he couldn't be stronger than a normal 9th layer spiritual ocean tier cultivator. More importantly, fist arts weren't Ling Han's forte. 14 stars nearing 15 stars was his current limit, and it was impossible to increase it any further. No matter, he also had a spirit tool. Purple Star Arm Guard. He immediately activated this spirit tool. When, under the infusion of powerful power, his power instantly soared. Power was the core element of battle prowess, and as his power increased, his battle prowess also correspondingly increased by a level. However, 15 stars nearing 16 stars, he was still slightly inferior to Ao Jiancheng. Ling Han still had a trick up his sleeve. With his heaven-tier martial art cultivation, Ao Jiancheng only needed to raise his hand or move his foot, and he would immediately be able to determine where the opponent's next attack would come from. Such foresight not only made up for the difference of 1 star in battle prowess, it even allowed Ling Han to have the upper hand. Hiss, the surrounding spectators all cried out in surprise. This was too inconceivable. Come to think of it, this new friend of mine is truly a complete freak, Yu Kaiyu muttered, and even reached out to touch the Restore Origin pill in his pocket. Now, he still had a surreal feeling. Chapter 345. Ling Han had the absolute initiative. He still hadn't activated the Eye of Truth, or else Ao Jiancheng's weakness would be infinitely magnified in front of his eyes. As long as the difference in battle prowess wasn't large, it would definitely be fatal, allowing him to win in a few moves. This was a mystical power, after all. Impossible! Ao Jiancheng roared angrily. He was close to his full battle prowess, but not only could he not suppress Ling Han, he even had the upper hand, which he couldn't accept no matter what. Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, "Nothing's impossible, just obediently let me slap you in the face. Don't even think about it." Ao Jiancheng was very conceited. Ranked last among the 7 sons of Ao family, he was only enduring for a moment, and sooner or later, he would soar to the skies. He hadn't even taken off yet, and suffered a head-on blow that made him dizzy. He actually couldn't beat someone at the 1st layer of the spiritual ocean tier. He couldn't believe it, couldn't accept it. Ah! He roared angrily, took out a spirit talisman, and slapped it on his chest. Instantly, surging origin power overflowed like the sea, and his power abruptly increased. His battle prowess instantly soared by 2 stars. This allowed him to directly suppress Ling Han, seizing the initiative of the battle. The spirit talisman he used was the Small Devil Sky Talisman, which could temporarily increase power, and the effect lasted about 10 minutes. So, he had to defeat Ling Han in this time, or else this precious spirit talisman would be wasted. No way, old Ao was forced to use a spirit talisman. I can't believe it, how can someone at the 1st layer of the spiritual ocean tier be so strong? I heard that there's a genius in the desolate north named Ling Han, who defeated Feng Yan at the 1st layer of the spiritual ocean tier at the 1st layer of the gushing spring tier. I always thought this couldn't happen, but now, I somewhat believe it. Too shocking, how can someone at the 1st layer of the spiritual ocean tier have such terrifying battle prowess? How many stars does this guy's battle prowess surpass? The people around were all shocked, it was too hard to accept. How could someone be so strong? Even the old man of the spiritual pedestal tier frowned. This time, he really picked up a treasure. Such a genius could probably be ranked among the top in the middle state. Lose, 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 lose. Ao Jiancheng shouted loudly. If he still couldn't defeat Ling Han after using the spirit talisman, then he would truly lose all face. Ling Han only snorted coldly, and said, "Stop daydreaming. He finally activated the Eye of Truth, and faint golden vein-like patterns flashed past his right eye. Ao Jiancheng's every move was infinitely slowed down in his eyes. Here, and here, it's full of holes. Ling Han was surprised. With his heaven-tier eyesight, he had only discovered 7 of Ao Jiancheng's flaws, but considering the power and attack speed of both sides, none of these 7 flaws could be used. If he chose these 7 spots to attack, the result would be that both sides would suffer. He had the indestructible Heaven Scroll and would definitely be able to hold on more than Ao Jiancheng, but he refused such a victory. This was Ao Feng's son, so he had to win to his heart's content. And under the Eye of Truth, Ao Jiancheng's flaws were magnified by 19. He immediately began to calculate in his mind, simulating the possible result of attacking every flaw, and after an instant, he obtained the answer. He. His figure suddenly advanced, charging towards Ao Jiancheng. What? Impossible. Are my eyes playing tricks on me? In everyone's cries of surprise, Ling Han directly avoided all of Ao Jiancheng's attacks, his figure constantly swaying as if he had become a paper man. The seemingly inconceivable and completely unreasonable action became a perfect dodge, allowing him to bully right in front of Ao Jiancheng. Pa! Ling Han raised his hand and gave a slap, landing solidly on Ao Jiancheng's face. It was clear and loud. Ao Jiancheng's eyes instantly turned red, and he shouted angrily, "I'm going to kill you." He was extremely furious. As one of the 7 sons of Ao family, he was actually slapped in the face in public. What kind of humiliation was this? He attacked wildly. However, in front of Ling Han, who activated the Eye of Truth, this kind of counterattack was meaningless. The two's strength wasn't that different, and the effect of the Eye of Truth was extremely shocking. Pa! Ling Han continuously waved his palms, and Ao Jiancheng was also continuously slapped in the face, his teeth spitting out one after another. However, he actually couldn't do anything, and could only roar in vain. His attacks were tyrannical, but they couldn't hit anyone at all, so what was the point? Enough. That spiritual pedestal tier elite didn't continue. This wasn't a battle at all, but a one-sided massacre. It didn't matter to others, but Ao Jiancheng was Ao Feng's son, and he couldn't just watch as Ao Jiancheng was humiliated, or else Ao Feng would definitely find trouble with him. Ao Feng was an existence that could at least step into the flower blossom tier in the future, and he didn't want Ao Jiancheng to bear a grudge. Pa! Ling Han slapped 4 more times, knocking all of Ao Jiancheng's teeth out before stopping and retreating. Ah! How could Ao Jiancheng swallow this insult? He leapt up and pounced towards Ling Han. "Milord already said to stop, and you still want to fight. Aren't you looking down on Milord?" Ling Han deliberately sounded arrogant. Ao Jiancheng almost went mad from anger. Just now, that spiritual pedestal tier elite said to stop, and didn't you still slap me 4 times in a row? Now you're playing the blame game. No one is as shameless as you, too despicable, too vulgar, too sinister. The spiritual pedestal tier elite's face was a bit dark, displeased with both Ao Jiancheng and Ling Han. These 2 guys didn't take him seriously. However, one was Ao Feng's son, and the other had freakish battle prowess, his future accomplishments limitless. It seemed like he couldn't do anything to either of them. This obviously made him very depressed. "Enough," he said coldly. In this battle, old Ao lost, Han Lin won. Yu Kaiyu touched his face, and said, "Compared to old Ao, I only lost 3 teeth, which can be considered preferential treatment. What medicine did this guy eat? How could he be so fierce?" The other battles also ended one after another, and the other 6 people of Ao family all won, but the expressions of the 6 people were quite unsightly. How Ao family competed internally was something that happened behind closed doors, but to the outside world, they were all people of Ao family. Now that old Ao was publicly slapped in the face, and even lost a mouthful of teeth, how could they not be angry? This brat actually dared to humiliate our Ao family's people in public, absolutely unforgivable. Ao Jian said coldly. However, he could so easily defeat old Ao, I'm afraid that apart from boss, no one else is his match. The key is that this guy is only at the first layer of the spiritual ocean tier. No matter what spirit tool, spirit talisman, or medicinal pill he used to have such battle prowess, it's still shockingly terrifying. The 6 sons of Ao family frowned at the same time, a strong sense of danger rising up. Chapter 346. Ling Han stood on the side, his right eye slightly aching. This was because his cultivation wasn't high enough, using the eye of truth for a while made him feel uncomfortable. He immediately operated the indestructible heaven scroll, the highest level profound meaning circulating, and his right eye quickly returned to normal. After all, he only used it for a while, but if he used it for a long time, it definitely wouldn't recover so easily. Ao Jiancheng had no face to stay any longer. There was no hope for the top 10 anyway, so he obviously turned and left, or else wouldn't he be treated as a joke? Everyone looked at Ling Han in shock. This guy really amazed the world with a single feat. The 7 sons of Ao family were absolute geniuses in the younger generation, and there were indeed spiritual pedestal tier warriors above them, but all of them were over 30 years old. In the martial art world, 30 years old was divided into youths and adults. Of course, after breaking through to the flower blossom tier, martial artists' lifespan increased greatly, and the boundaries of youths had to be redefined. It could be imagined that after today's exam, the entire Winter Moon sect would be shaken. Old monsters that hid for a long time might appear, fighting to take this guy with outstanding talent as a personal disciple. Now, the top 10 ranking battle will begin, the spiritual pedestal tier warrior said. There are only 10 of you left, and everyone has to battle the other 9 once. If you win, you'll get 3 points, if you draw, you'll get 1 point, and if you lose, you won't get any points. Each battle will last at most half an hour, and if it goes beyond that, it'll be considered a draw. Begin. He swept a glance at Ling Han, somewhat displeased. However, who asked Ling Han's talent to be too monstrous? So what if he was displeased? In a few years, the latter's cultivation might surpass his, and he could only look up to him. In the martial art world, only cultivation, only strength, age, and experience. Who were they showing it to? Everyone carefully chose their opponents. This was a strategy. For example, they could be ranked in the middle, but if they encountered an elite and were heavily injured, their ranking would be at the bottom. And after entering the top 10, with every step forward, the rewards obtained would be slightly better, so everyone naturally wanted to earn more points. Ling Han was too strong, and probably only Ao Xinglai qualified to be his opponent here, so everyone wanted to avoid him, treating him and Ao Xinglai as the last 2 opponents. But how could that be? Ao Xinglai also didn't challenge Ling Han first. Instead, he chose another person as his opponent. Among the top 10, 6 of them were from the Ao clan. Therefore, Ling Han randomly targeted one of them, and the probability of encountering a member of the Ao clan was up to 2/3. His opponent was Ao Jian, ranked 5th. Everyone called him Ao the 5th or Ao the 5th. Ao Jian did not dare to be careless. He drew his sword with a solemn expression. Ling Han only smiled faintly, but there was a baleful look in his eyes. He didn't have a good impression of anyone from the Ao clan, so whenever he caught one, he would give them a ruthless beating. If this wasn't the Winter Moon sect, he would definitely draw Ao Old 5th into the Black Tower. As for whether he would kill him or imprison him, that was up to his mood. Ao Jian did not waste any time and directly used his ultimate move. With a swing of his sword, 6 streaks of sword chi crisscrossed. It was extremely shocking. The 7 sons of the Ao family were able to dominate the younger generation of the Winter Moon sect, and indeed could not be underestimated. Just by looking at these 6 flashes of sword chi, one could tell that if they were brought to Rain Country, even the swordsmen of the older generation would not have such strength. The amount of sword chi represented the understanding of the way of the sword. Ling Han also opened the eye of truth. His figure dashed out and forcibly shuttled through the gaps between Ao Jian's moves, appearing in front of his opponent. Under his opponent's disbelieving gaze, pa, he punched his opponent's face. With every punch, Ao Jian would spit out a mouthful of blood, accompanied by a broken tooth. Ling Han punched a total of 32 times, and Ao Jian also spat out 32 mouthfuls of blood and 32 broken teeth. Peng, when Ling Han punched the last time, Ao Jian also flew up into the air and fell heavily onto the ground after drawing an arc. He immediately fainted. This, everyone gasped. It was said that one shouldn't hit the face in a fight, but Ling Han specifically hit the face. This was too ruthless. Martial artists cared the most about face, not to mention proud figures like the 7 sons of the Ao family. But now, the 2 of them fought with Ling Han, yet they were all knocked out of their teeth. Was this the rhythm of a death grudge? Too ruthless. Yu Kai couldn't help but touch his face again, feeling even more how lucky he was to only lose 3 teeth. Ling Han said that he wanted to be friends with him, and it didn't seem wrong, but there seemed to be something wrong. This battle ended very quickly. From the beginning of the battle, Ling Han slapped Ao Jian 32 times in an extremely powerful manner, so fast that it was like a gust of wind. When this gust of wind blew, the outcome was already decided. The spiritual pedestal tier elite's face couldn't help but darken a bit. This was the second son of the Ao family to have all his teeth knocked out. As the supervisor, he would definitely be hated by Ao Feng. This was really an undeserved disaster, making him a bit more dissatisfied with Ling Han. Ling Han didn't care about this and sat down to recover the origin power that he consumed. In fact, he really didn't consume much origin power. He just put on a show for others to make himself look slightly more normal. It was mainly to relieve the soreness in his eyes. Opening the eye of truth twice in a row made him feel some pressure. The indestructible heaven scroll circulated, and the discomfort in his eyes quickly disappeared, but it was a bit slower than the first time. After half an hour, all the battles were over. Everyone exchanged opponents and fought again. This time, Ling Han's opponent wasn't the 7 sons of the Ao family, nor was it a disciple of the Winter Moon sect, but Yang Chong. Little Overlord Spear. Brother Han, how could a person as powerful as you be unknown and only suddenly appear today? Yang Chong drew out a 2-meter-long silver spear. The spear's body was like a wash, and aimed at Ling Han, emitting a terrifying baleful aura. Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, "Can't I just focus on cultivation and amaze the world with a single brilliant feat?" Then Brother Han's patience is truly admirable. Yang Chong took quick steps and charged towards Ling Han. He suddenly swept the body of his spear horizontally, using it as a long staff. Hoo! A strong wind howled as the long spear swept past, like a silver dragon, sending out multiple bursts of chi. Pa, the sound of explosions did not stop. The speed of this spear broke through the speed of sound. Ling Han's right fist clenched and punched towards the spear. Hong! His fist landed on the sword, and instantly, his whole body trembled violently. An inch longer, an inch stronger. This sweep of the long spear not only condensed Yang Chong's full strength, but also maximized its power as it swung. Unless Ling Han's strength far surpassed Yang Chong's, taking this attack head-on would only result in such a result. On the other hand, Yang Chong's perlicue was only split open and blood seeped out, but he immediately turned the sweep into a stab, stabbing towards Ling Han's chest. To swing the long spear and form a staff attack required a large amount of space to maneuver. If he attacked again, it would give Ling Han more time to recover, and it wouldn't be a choice that someone as smart as him would make. Thus, he thrust his spear forward. This was a consecutive move, one of the strongest moves of the Overlord Spear technique. Chapter 347. This person was like a god descending into the world, his aura astonishing. He was obviously only in the spiritual pedestal tier, but his martial intent was ostentatious, and the deterrent force was almost no weaker than the flower blossom tier. Behind him, there were many beautiful female martial artists holding their cheeks, their eyes full of stars as they couldn't help but scream, looking infatuated with him. He strode in front of Zhu Xian'er, the corners of his mouth curling up, revealing a smile that could make one's mind go wild, and said, "Zhu Xian'er, take off your veil, and let me see if you have the qualifications to be my bride." So handsome. Too domineering. Wen Yi Jian, marry me, I'm willing to be your bride. Many female martial artists shrieked in a frenzy. Zhu Xian'er's pretty face turned cold, and her gaze swept over Ling Han, yet she said indifferently, "Xian'er has already taken young Master Han as my master, and as long as young Master Han agrees, Xian'er will naturally take off my veil." Conversely, as long as Ling Han didn't agree, then she could just stay where she was. What? Once these words were spoken, everyone was in an uproar. The women were obviously indignant that Zhu Xian'er actually refused such a super handsome guy, while the men's eyes were red with anxiety. Take young Master Han as my master, what did this mean? Did you offer your body and mind to him? For a moment, countless gazes that wished to kill stared at Ling Han. If gazes were like swords, Ling Han would definitely be chopped into pieces, and if gazes were like fire, Ling Han would definitely be burned into ashes. "Ha, so you're that young Master Han?" The godlike youngster stared at Ling Han, and revealed a disdainful smile. "I'm called Wen Yi Jian, and will also be the world's #1 sword in the future." "Ha, there's an idiot in the middle state who calls himself the world's #2 sword." Fortunately, he didn't call himself the #1 sword, or else I'll definitely let him know what's called sword path. So handsome. Hearing these bold words, many women became infatuated again. Ling Han only smiled faintly, and said, "Yao Huiyu indeed has the qualifications to be called the world's #2 sword in the future, but you? I'm just a lowly person. Whether or not you can become the world's most lowly person depends on how hard you work." Wen Yi Jian's expression immediately darkened, and he said, "You dare insult me?" "Insult you? I don't think so, I'm just speaking the truth." Ling Han shrugged. Wen Yi Jian looked up at the sky and laughed, and said, "In this world, no one can insult me." "Oh, you really think you're something?" Ling Han said disdainfully. Originally, he wasn't interested in paying attention to this kind of overconfident person, but who told him to provoke him first? "Apologize to me, and if I'm satisfied, I can only cripple one of your arms," Wen Yi Jian said proudly. Ling Han gave an "oh," and said, "From your tone, you don't seem to be from the North region." "Nonsense, how could there be a genius like me in the North region? I'm the #1 genius of the sword in the East region," Wen Yi Jian said without the slightest modesty. His gaze swept over, and seeing that many men revealed angry expressions, he couldn't help but sneer. "What, you're not convinced? If not, then come at me. I can beat you until you're convinced, starting with you." When he said the last sentence, he stared at Ling Han again. "You're not qualified to fight with Master Ling." A white-clothed figure shot out. It was Xinzhong Cheng. "I'll defeat you." White-clothed Sword King. 8th on the prodigy roll. White-clothed Sword King, beat this East region's bastard. Many men roared. Wen Yi Jian's arrogance already aroused public anger. Of course, there was another person who also became a public enemy, and that was obviously Ling Han. However, many people already heard that Ling Han became a heaven-grade alchemist. At least on the surface, who dared to challenge a heaven-grade alchemist? Wen Yi Jian was slightly surprised, and said to Ling Han, "You're still some master. Don't be scared when I say it." Ling Han smiled slightly. Ha, what master can scare me? Wen Yijian said disdainfully. You're at most a high-level black-grade alchemist, although for your age, this is already very impressive. Ha 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 ha. Everyone instantly laughed loudly. Wen Yijian was baffled by the laughter, and said darkly, Is what I said that funny? Idiot, my family's young master Han is a heaven-grade alchemist. Zhu Wujiu shouted. Ha 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 ha. This time, it was Wen Yijian's turn to laugh loudly, almost to the point of tears. Wasn't this funny? Who didn't know that there were only 2 heaven-grade alchemists in the entire vast lands, but these 2 diligently studied alchemy for who knew how many years, so how could they be this immature youngster in front of him? However, after he laughed for a while, he discovered that no one echoed him, and instead looked at him as if he was an idiot. Apart from a few beauties who still had their usual fanatical gazes. Grandmaster Ling is indeed a heaven-grade alchemist, admired by all in the world, an old man said. He was a flower blossom tier elite of the extreme imperial sect, specially escorting the sect's disciples into the mystery realm. That's right, Grandmaster Ling is our North region's most outstanding genius, the one and only, the flower blossom tier elite of the Great Compassion sect also said. Greetings, Grandmaster Ling. The flower blossom tier elites present all cupped their hands in salute. Alchemy and martial arts weren't in the same domain, but were inextricably linked. If it weren't for Ling Han's cultivation being too low, these flower blossom tier elites would have to kneel in salute. Ling Han only raised his hand, appearing calm and composed. He'd seen this kind of scene many times in his previous life, so he obviously wouldn't be flustered. Wen Yijian was greatly shocked. A flower blossom tier elite might be muddle-headed, but it was definitely impossible for over 100 flower blossom tier elites to all go crazy. Hiss, this youngster in front of him was really a heaven-grade alchemist? Holy shit, this was too young, wasn't it? Alchemists had a transcendent status, and even if you didn't ask for an alchemist's help, you definitely couldn't offend them. Because offending an alchemist, especially a high-level alchemist, many people would volunteer to stick up for the alchemist without the alchemist even having to say anything. If the matter of him, Wen Yijian, looking down on a heaven-grade alchemist got out, would there still be a place for him in the entire vast lands? Wen Yijian was proud, but definitely not stupid, so he immediately lowered his proud head, and said, I didn't know Master Ling, please forgive me, Master Ling. Ling Han smiled, and said, Actually, I'm not some heaven-grade alchemist, just a small martial artist. Didn't you want to teach me a lesson? Come, let's fight to our heart's content. Fight your sister, you think I'm stupid? How could Wen Yijian believe that over 100 flower blossom tier elites cooperating with a small spiritual pedestal tier like Ling Han to put on a show? Was that possible? He laughed loudly, and said, Master Ling really knows how to joke. He was also an extremely slick person, and wasn't troubled by Ling Han's words in the slightest. Wen Yijian, come fight. Shen Zhongcheng was full of fighting spirit. He was also a sword user, and couldn't help but want to spar with a sword arts expert. Wen Yijian just kicked an iron plate and lost a lot of face, so he obviously wanted to regain his face. He immediately snorted, and said, Since you want to lose so much, I'll let you have it all. Chapter 348. Ling Han won 2 consecutive victories, and each battle was won cleanly, his momentum growing stronger and stronger. The 3rd round of challenges began, and Ling Han again encountered the 7 sons of Ao family, ranked 6th, called Ao Mingjie. There was naturally no need to be polite, activating the Eye of Truth and slapping faces to his heart's content. Under 32 heavy punches, Ao Mingjie also became a toothless disciple. Now, everyone finally understood that Ling Han definitely had a grudge against the Ao family. Against others, he only defeated them, and although he would also heavily injure them, none of them were so miserable, having all their teeth knocked out. But what kind of existence was the Ao family in the Winter Moon sect? The ancestor of the Ao family was a grand elder, an old monster of the spiritual infant tier, so why did he have to have such a bad relationship with the Ao family? Even if he was young and impetuous, he shouldn't be so arrogant. Ling Han didn't need others to understand his way of doing things, he just waited. His next opponent was one of the 7 sons of Ao family, ranked 3rd, Ao Xing Han. The result was naturally needless to say, he was beaten violently, and also became a toothless disciple. In the next round, Ling Han faced Si Chi Meng. This woman was really strong, killing her way here, but her current record was 1 win and 3 losses, and the only win was against Bai Ming. She was quite straightforward, and directly admitted defeat. It couldn't be helped, her 3 losses were all given by the 7 sons of Ao family, and Ling Han could beat the 7 sons of Ao family. Was there even a need to mention the gap? She was a delicate beauty, and if she was beaten black and blue on the spot, how embarrassing would that be? Ling Han now had 5 wins and 0 losses, and was currently tied for first with Ao Xing Lai and Ao Yuan Wei. In the 6th round, he encountered Bai Ming. Bai Ming admitted defeat. In the 7th round, he fought Ao Feng Xing, but Ao Feng Xing actually decisively admitted defeat, escaping the fate of being slapped in the face and becoming a toothless disciple. This made Ling Han very displeased, and his face darkened as if everyone was an eyesore. Everyone's face twitched. As expected, Ling Han really had a grudge against the Ao family. It wasn't good that he admitted defeat, but he actually got angry. In the 8th round, Ling Han fought against Ao Yuan Wei. However, this fellow did not admit defeat and wanted to fight with Ling Han. His strength was indeed a little stronger than the other 5 sons of the Ao clan. But, it was only a little. He had just launched his attack when Ling Han used his eye of truth to see everything clearly. Then, he rushed over and gave him a good beating. Suddenly, he and his 4 brothers became toothless. Ling Han covered his eyes. The continuous use of the eye of truth was too much of a burden on him. This was not something that could be healed by the indestructible Heaven's Scroll alone. Rather, it was a strong sense of exhaustion that arose in his soul, and he needed a long period of rest to recover. During the last battle against Ao Xing Lai, he couldn't use the eye of truth anymore. Otherwise, he might suffer from an intense backlash, and it would definitely not feel good. It was fine, the eye of truth was only one of his trump cards. He still had other trump cards, such as the indestructible Heaven's Scroll. At worst, he would trade injury for injury with Ao Xing Lai, but not death. When he thought of this, Ling Han could not help but reveal a strong hostility. His family was his reverse scale, and Ao Feng had injured his father and imprisoned his mother, arousing the murderous aura in his blood. The last round, begin, the spiritual pedestal tier elite said indifferently, but his eyes were fixed on Ling Han and Ao Xing Lai. In his mind, Ao Xing Lai was definitely a popular contender for first place, the only popular contender, but now there was actually another person with 8 wins and 0 losses. This was something he would never have thought of before. The winner of these 2 would be the first in this year's Mountain Gate opening examination. However, if Ling Han obtained first place, then it would make the elder of the Ao clan very displeased. Because the Thunder Battle armor was taken out as a reward this time, it was the elder of the Ao clan who insisted on pushing for it. His intention was naturally very obvious, he wanted this Thunder Battle armor to become a possession of the Ao clan. This was originally in the bag. The 7 sons of the Ao clan all moved out, but the result was really hard to say. Ling Han or Ao Xing Lai, who was stronger? Before this, no one would have any hesitation. They were certain that the strongest spiritual ocean tier elite of the Winter Moon sect could only be Ao Xing Lai. But now, after witnessing Ling Han's battle prowess, no one dared to pat their chest like that. This young man was really too miraculous. Ling Han faced Ao Xing Lai directly. This was Ao Feng's most outstanding son, and if he was beaten to a pulp, Ao Feng would definitely be extremely displeased. Ling Han could not help but reveal a smile, and said, "I hope you don't admit defeat." "Ha, do you think I'm one of those trash?" Ao Xinglai said coldly, his face full of disdain. These words dealt a heavy blow to the 6 sons of Ao family, causing the 5 sons who were left behind to look furious. However, their faces had all been slapped swollen by Ling Han, so there wasn't much change in their expressions. "Very good, then I don't have to worry." Ling Han breathed a huge sigh of relief. "Your face, I'm definitely going to slap it." Ao Xinglai was so angry that his body trembled. This was too much of an insult to him. "Young man, trouble usually comes from the mouth, and your mouth is cheap, and your hands are also cheap. I will cripple your hands, and let you know that the reputation of the Ao clan is not to be slandered by anyone," he said in a low voice. He had already suppressed his anger, displaying his cultivation in martial art. "Very nice words, but that requires true strength." Ling Han crooked his finger. "Come quickly, my fists can't help but want to leave a mark on your face." "Impudence." Ao Xinglai finally moved. A long sword appeared out of nowhere, pitch black like ink. Once it was drawn out, the whole universe dimmed for a moment before returning to normal. "Black, black star sword." The disciples of the Winter Moon sect all cried out in shock. Even the 5 sons of the Ao clan all had difficult expressions, their eyes revealing intense jealousy. The Black Star Sword was Ao Feng's weapon, a level 5 spirit tool that could be gradually activated. Even in the hands of a spiritual ocean tier martial artist, it could still display the strongest battle prowess in the spiritual ocean tier. Now that this Black Star Sword appeared in Ao Xinglai's hands, it at least meant 2 things. Firstly, Ao Feng saw Ao Xinglai as the true heir, which was why he gave his spirit tool to him. Secondly, Ao Feng was probably really about to advance into the Flower Blossom tier, so he could even give away a level 5 spirit tool. That's right, it's the Black Star Sword. Ao Xinglai's face was full of arrogance, and under the jealous gazes of the other 5 sons, he was very pleased. He had cultivated hard for almost 20 years, not daring to slack off for even a moment, and now he had finally made it. He was the representative of the new generation of the Ao clan, one of a kind. "Han Lin, I represent the Ao clan to punish you." Ao Xinglai activated the Black Star Sword, and multiple patterns lit up, exuding a terrifying aura. "Punish your sister." Ling Han humphed. "Using a chicken feather as a token of authority, who do you think you are?" He took the initiative to attack, throwing a punch. 7 dragons and elephants appeared, charging towards Ao Xinglai. More refreshing reading on mobile. Chapter 349. Ao Xinglai only snorted coldly and waved the Black Star Sword. A black light appeared, and specks of starlight flickered, easily destroying the 7-headed dragon elephant. This was a 5th-tier spirit tool. Even if it couldn't be fully activated, it was still essentially at the spiritual pedestal tier. Ling Han was certainly freakish, possessing 16 stars of battle prowess at the first layer of the spiritual ocean tier, but how could 16 stars compare to the spiritual pedestal tier? It was the same logic as when Ling Han drew out the demon birth sword at the 9th layer of the gushing spring tier, even a spiritual ocean tier beast king had to be wary. Ha, once the Black Star Sword is drawn, this guy can only bow his head. That's natural. In Ao Xinglai's hands, though the Black Star Sword can't unleash the might of the spiritual pedestal tier, it's a spirit tool. With Ao Xinglai's strength, it's enough to unleash 1% of the Black Star Sword's power. This kind of power is enough to suppress anyone under the spiritual pedestal tier. No matter how freakish you are, it's useless. Everyone spoke one after another. This battle that was originally full of uncertainty had lost its suspense, and Ling Han would soon be defeated. Ling Han frowned. The Black Star Sword was indeed very powerful. If he were to face it with his bare hands, the result would really be hard to say, unless his physique could be raised to the Iron Sheet tier. At that time, he would indeed be able to contend against mid to low-level spirit tools. Would he have to draw the demon birth sword? A 10th tier spirit tool obviously could easily crush the Black Star sword. If the two clashed, the Black Star sword would definitely break upon contact. There was no other possibility. The problem was, once the demon birth sword was drawn, how many old monsters would be envious of such a treasure? Could it be that he couldn't take care of a son of Ao Feng without the demon birth sword? Ling Han's arrogance instantly rose. His true trump card wasn't the demon birth sword, but the indestructible Heaven's Scroll, and the Black Tower. Fine, then let's deal with it. Youngster, you take a strike from me as well. Ao Xinglai charged with his sword. With a wave of the Black Star sword, 6 flashes of sword chi shot out. Every flash of sword chi was as black as ink, having been enhanced by the Black Star sword, possessing the destructive power of the Black Star sword. Ling Han punched out, and 6 streams of fist chi turned into 6 dragons and elephants, meeting the sword chi head-on. Pu, 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 pu. Each of the sword chi sliced a dragon elephant in half. The 6 sword chis were almost undamaged, and they continued to slash towards Ling Han. Everyone cried out in surprise. Previously, in the battle between Ling Han and Yang Cheng's spear chi was also boosted by the spirit tool, but it was no match for Ling Han's fist chi, which was punched out with bare hands. But now, the tables were completely turned. One could only say that the Black Star sword was too strong. Although there was only a thin line between the 4th tier and the 5th tier, the gap of a large tier separated the number of martial artists. In the eyes of spiritual pedestal tier warriors, spiritual ocean tier warriors could completely be called ants. Ling Han's figure flickered as he executed the shadow wind movement art. He was like a phantom, dodging all 6 sword chis. Ha ha ha, you can't even withstand a single flash of my sword chi, and you still dream of fighting me? Ao Xinglai sneered. He himself possessed 16 battle stars of battle prowess, and with the addition of the Black Star sword, his battle prowess was already close to 1 star of the spiritual pedestal tier. Wouldn't that be enough to sweep away all spiritual ocean tier warriors? With the Black Star sword in hand, this guy can completely suppress Han Lin without having to worry about wasting any energy. But he didn't challenge Han Lin earlier, allowing us to be humiliated. Ao Feng Xing's eyes shone coldly as he said to the other 4 in a low voice. Damn it! Ao Jian clenched his fists tightly. He wants to use Han Lin to trample all of us down, and if he wins by force, then everyone in the world will only remember that there is only one Ao Xinglai in the Ao family. Let's join forces, or else we'll only be completely outclassed by him, Ao Mingjia suggested. All right. All right. The 5 sons of the Ao family all nodded. When they went to find Ao Jiancheng later, they didn't believe that the 6 of them joining forces would be unable to defeat a single Ao Xinglai. Who? The Black Star sword slashed, and 6 flashes of sword chi were like ink dragons, indestructible and shockingly terrifying. However, from the looks of it now, Ao Xinglai was indeed incomparably powerful, displaying an invincible stance. No matter what, Ling Han couldn't possibly defeat him. Meanwhile, Ling Han was very conflicted. He had at least 4 ways to change the situation of the battle. First, the Black Tower unleashed its might. According to Small Tower, the entire vast lands could be destroyed, but this would attract the higher-ups of the higher realms. At that time, the Black Tower would definitely be snatched, and he would be killed like an ant. This was not to be considered. Second, the Black Tower's power boost would cause his cultivation to soar to the first layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, and he would be able to kill Ao Xinglai with a wave of his hand. However, the later the Black Tower's power boost, the better. This involved a chance to thoroughly cleanse his body, and Ling Han didn't want to waste it. Not to be considered for now. Third, take out the demon birth sword, but he'd already considered the consequences, so it was also set aside. Then there was only the fourth option, which was to use the Eye of Truth to find the weakness. If Ao Xinglai was truly in the spiritual pedestal tier, then the Eye of Truth would be useless. Mystical powers weren't gods, and could only increase his battle prowess to a certain extent. However, Ao Xinglai only possessed a sliver of spiritual pedestal tier battle prowess by relying on the Black Star Sword, which gave him a gap to break through. If there was a backlash, then so be it. Compared to the other three options, using the Eye of Truth was still the safest. When golden vein-like patterns immediately shone in his right eye, and the world appeared in front of him in another form. Time slowed down, and even stopped, but at the same time, a stream of tears of blood flowed from his eyes. Overusing the Eye of Truth had caused him to suffer in the end. Kill! Ling Han suddenly advanced, charging towards Ao Xinglai. He circled around the Black Star Sword, bypassed the 6 flashes of sword chi, and faced Ao Xinglai directly. Hiss! Everyone was shocked. This allowed Ling Han to successfully break through. Could it be that the battle was about to turn around again? Yet Ao Xinglai didn't show the slightest hint of panic, and said coldly, "I already knew that your movement technique was strange, so how could I not be prepared?" He shook his sword, and when another flash of sword chi was shot out. 7 flashes of sword chi. No one would have thought that Ao Xinglai actually held back. His limit wasn't 6 flashes of sword chi, but 7. King tier, a king tier of martial arts. What a sinister guy. The 7th flash of sword chi was as black as ink, and slashed fiercely towards Ling Han's chest. Even Ling Han hadn't expected this, but he had lived for 200 years in his last life, and in the last period of his life, he had entered and exited incomparably dangerous historical sites. His ability to adapt to changes was definitely top-notch, or else he would have died countless times. His figure inconceivably twisted, avoiding the vital point on his chest, and at the same time, his right fist still smashed towards Ao Xinglai's face. Ling Han's ribs were instantly struck by a sword. How sharp was the sword chi! It even tore a hole in his body of rock cliff, and fresh blood gushed out like a spring. Ao Xinglai was also sent flying by this punch. Ao Xinglai turned and landed on the ground. He opened his mouth and spat out 2 pieces of blood. He couldn't help but be angry and shocked. Though Ling Han's injuries were far more severe than his, he had still used the Black Star Sword. Chapter 350. Everyone exclaimed. The 7 sons of Ao family were all famous, and the Winter Moon sect had high hopes for them. In the entire history of the sect, it was rare for 7 brothers to be ranked so highly at the same time. But 5 of them were defeated, and 1 admitted defeat. If even Ao Xinglai was no match for Ling Han, then the 7 sons of Ao family would become a joke. Defeated by the same person in a single day. Ling Han and Ao Xinglai both took a few steps back. One covered his ribs with one hand, and the other pressed his face. Lone wolf blood circulated, and Ling Han charged out again. As he circulated the indestructible heaven scroll to heal his wounds, he wanted to defeat Ao Xinglai in one go. As his cultivation level increased, Lone Wolf Blood's increase in battle prowess became weaker and weaker. Now, it could barely increase battle prowess by 1 battle star, but no matter how small a mosquito's leg was, it was still meat, and any increase was a little. Ao Xinglai's face was full of shock. He had laid an ambush with a flash of sword chi, catching Ling Han off guard, but it only heavily injured the opponent. No, that wasn't even a heavy injury, just a slightly serious one. And Ling Han's counterattack also gave him a heavy punch, breaking 2 of his teeth. But there was no time for him to be shocked. Ling Han threw another punch, and he could only react. He waved his sword, and instantly, 7 flashes of sword chi shot out. Since he had already revealed his trump card, there was no need for him to hide anymore. With the increase of the Black Star Sword, the 7 flashes of sword chi were shockingly sharp. Ling Han tried his best, and with the help of the Eye of Truth, he dodged 6 flashes of sword chi, but he still couldn't completely dodge the 7th flash of sword chi. It slashed his leg again, but Ling Han didn't seem to feel it. Peng, a punch shot out, smashing onto Ao Xinglai's face. This was completely exchanging injury for injury. In everyone's eyes, the Black Star Sword was extremely sharp, and it was also a level 5 spirit tool, containing the intent of martial art that completely crushed spiritual ocean tier. No matter how strong Ling Han's will was, how many times could he change it? If Ling Han did not change his battle strategy, then he would only be continuously injured by Ao Xinglai, and in the end, he would completely lose his ability to fight. But what they did not know was that Ling Han possessed the indestructible Heaven Scroll, which allowed him to instantly recover from normal injuries. Moreover, he also had 3 drops of indestructible true fluid, which could allow him to recover from serious injuries 3 times. What kind of concept was that? It was practically an unkillable monster. Moreover, he possessed a shred of the divine sense of the heaven tier, so dispelling the martial art willpower attached to a level 5 spiritual tool was nothing to him. If others were struck by the Black Star Sword, even if it was just sword chi, they would bleed profusely, and even their divine sense would be destroyed. Otherwise, how could a spiritual tool be so terrifying? To Ling Han, the Black Star Sword was just a little sharper. Yes, it was very sharp. Even his rock body couldn't withstand it. Bang 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 bang, the two of them continued to trade injury for injury. Admittedly, Ling Han's entire body was covered in wounds, and his face had turned pale due to the large amount of blood he had lost. Ao Xinglai's condition did not look any better, and his face was already no different from a pig's head. It could be said that even if Ao Xinglai could win this battle, there was nothing to be proud of. Not only did he have to rely on the might of a spiritual tool, his face had also been beaten into a pig's head, and he had completely lost face. Most importantly, Ao Xinglai might not be able to win. Ling Han continued to swallow alchemical pills, and the injuries on his body actually came under control. By the looks of it, he could still hold on for a very, very long time. Of course, Ling Han was only taking pills for show. He did not want others to know that he possessed a powerful recovery ability. In any case, he had already said that he had an alchemist master who could even gift bottles of Restore Origin pills to others, so it was not strange that he would have a lot of healing pills on him. This kind of scene caused the elite of spiritual pedestal tier to look hesitant. He did not know whether he should stop the battle or not. If this continued, the two of them could possibly be crippled. If such a thing really happened, he would not be able to absolve himself from the blame. However, just as he was hesitating, Ling Han and Ao Xinglai fiercely exchanged over a dozen blows. Ao Xinglai spat out blood and staggered. Though he had the cultivation of the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, he did not have a divine healing art like the indestructible Heaven Scroll, so how could he endure the continuous barrage of punches from Ling Han? He was now completely relying on his willpower to hold on. He could not lose, he definitely could not lose. He was the leader of the 7 sons of Ao family, and he had inherited the Black Star Sword. He could only be glorious for a lifetime. However, why was his vision becoming blurrier and blurrier? Ao Xinglai's entire face was covered in blood, blurring his vision, and his willpower was similarly becoming blurred. Anyone who was punched in the head several dozen times by a martial artist of the same cultivation level would definitely feel dizzy and see stars. Everyone could understand his condition. Though Ao Xinglai had also taken some alchemical pills, the effects of the pills needed time to take effect. Moreover, healing pills were only healing pills, and not celestial pills. This caused everyone to be extremely confused. That was because Ling Han's injuries were obviously more severe, yet he was still able to jump around in such a lively manner. Though he was also completely bathed in blood, his condition was who knew how many times better than Ao Xinglai's. Could it be that this brat had really taken a celestial pill? I won't lose, won't lose. Ao Xinglai staggered, but a willpower supported him. He definitely could not faint. He was Ao Xinglai, and in a battle of the same cultivation level, he definitely could not lose. This kind of fighting spirit caused everyone to involuntarily feel admiration. Whether or not Ao Xinglai was well liked was one thing, but this tenacious willpower was worthy of praise. Even Ling Han nodded internally. However, their standpoints were different, and it also involved the thunder battle armor, so he naturally could not stop. With your fighting spirit. Ling Han threw another punch. Ao Xinglai found it difficult to even stand, so how could he dodge or parry this punch? Instantly, he was punched in the chest. I grant you a dignified defeat. Peng, Ao Xinglai fell heavily onto the ground, and could no longer get up. Even the strongest willpower had its limits. 9 rounds of battle ended, and Ling Han had 9 wins and 0 losses, fully deserving of the first place. Very good, now you guys can go back and rest. Tomorrow, the rewards will be given out, that spiritual pedestal tier elite said, also sighing in relief. Though Ao Xinglai had been very badly beaten up, he had not suffered a serious injury that could not be healed, after all. Ha, junior brother Han, come to my place to play. Yu Kai-yu immediately walked over, extending an invitation to Ling Han. Putting aside the fact that Ling Han had given him 3 bottles of Restore Origin pill, Ling Han had defeated all the 7 sons of Ao family, which made Yu Kai-yu consider him a close friend. Ling Han said, wait for me to clean up, then go to senior brother Yu's place. Yes. Yu Kai-yu nodded hurriedly. Ling Han was now covered in blood, and he looked extremely disheveled when he went up, so he naturally had to take a good bath and change into a set of clean clothes. Ling Han returned to his residence on Rising Sword Peak and directly entered the Black Tower to clean himself up, then gnawed on 100-year-old ginseng to nourish his body before going to find Yu Kai-yu. He also wanted to inquire about his mother's news through the latter's mouth. Chapter 351. Hey, it can't be, is it really okay to play like this? Ling Han sighed. He had finally gained the upper hand with great difficulty, and had even formed the 10th flash of sword chi. Everything was perfect. But suddenly, his opponent cheated, and did not want to battle with you on the same cultivation level, but wanted to advance to the flower blossom tier. How could he stand this? Ling Han was very freakish. He was now only in the first layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, but his battle prowess had already reached half a step into the flower blossom tier. But even if he advanced to the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, his battle prowess would still be half a step into the flower blossom tier, merely the stronger half a step into the flower blossom tier. How could the boundaries of mortals be so easily crossed? Even the Rain Emperor had to rely on the great power of a nation to forcibly raise his battle prowess from half a step into the flower blossom tier to the flower blossom tier. The power of a nation, how many people and how many martial artists were there in Rain Country? Previously, the gigantic golem dispersed into countless small golems, lying on the ground like stubborn rocks. It was probably absorbing the power of the earth, making the final effort to break through to the flower blossom tier. Thus, his and that woman's arrival did not alarm the golem at the first instant, because it was in a crucial period. That woman also didn't pay attention and stepped on a rock, which naturally made the golem feel a sense of danger. He casually slapped her to death. When a martial artist was in seclusion and had his nose poked with a finger, would you explode in anger and want to kill someone? Now that the gigantic golem couldn't beat Ling Han, it could only forcefully begin to break through. As long as it advanced into the flower blossom tier, killing Ling Han would be as easy as turning over its palm. This was not only revenge, but also survival, so it had no choice but to stake it all. Ling Han wanted to make a move to stop the golem from taking this step, but after some thought, he dispelled the idea. He wholeheartedly subdued this gigantic golem, so the stronger the golem was, the better. The golem could cheat, but so could he, small tower, is there any way to make a move? Ling Han asked. This was a mystery realm, a small world of its own. Small Tower immediately said, although this is a small world, and I also absorbed some source power, it's still not enough to conceal the power fluctuations when making a move. Ling Han was instantly disappointed. After all this time, he still couldn't use it, so he could only stop this gigantic golem's breakthrough or turn around and run. However, if you only unleash Black Tower and don't use power, I can still suppress this kind of aura fluctuations, Small Tower continued. Oh. Ling Han's heart moved. If he unleashed Black Tower and lured the gigantic golem in, then inside the Black Tower, this gigantic golem would have to listen obediently, not to mention Flower Blossom Tier 1s. He immediately made up his mind to let the gigantic golem break through and subdue a Flower Blossom Tier rock spirit. Spirits of the 5 elements, each one had a special ability. Strange Fire could assist in alchemy, Rock Spirit could nourish the earth, Metal Spirit could make weapons sharper and sturdier, Wood Spirit was the source of life and had shocking healing effects, and Water Spirit could summon clouds and rain, relieving drought. Ling Han quietly waited for the gigantic golem's breakthrough. Being idle, he summoned Guang Yuan and Li Si-chan out of the Black Tower, and the 3 started cultivating together. The spiritual chi here was too dense, forming streaks of spiritual mist. Cultivating for 1 day was equivalent to cultivating for dozens of days outside. Ling Han and Guang Yuan were both martial arts maniacs, so they obviously entered the state at the first moment. Although Li Si-chan mainly focused on alchemy, cultivation was still necessary. She didn't have a strange fire, so her alchemy level was limited by martial arts. Thus, she also quickly started cultivating. They had all taken pills that could assist in their cultivation to further increase their cultivation speed. Only when their soul power was exhausted did they stop. At this time, the gigantic golem was still in the midst of breaking through. Rocks crumbled all over its body, and its entire body was actually shrinking. Ling Han was clear that this wasn't the gigantic golem's failure. On the contrary, it was walking quite solidly on this path. The flower blossom tier was breaking away from the mortal body, and for a rock spirit, it was the same. It condensed the essence within its body, shedding the useless stubborn rocks, and developed towards a higher level of life. What's that big guy? Li Si-chan finally had the time to ask. Rock spirit, a rare rock of heaven and earth with intelligence, transforming into a living spirit, Ling Han said simply. It seems to be undergoing some kind of transformation, Guang Yuan said. Yes. Ling Han nodded. It's breaking through to the flower blossom tier, and I'm waiting for it. Once it successfully breaks through, I'll subdue it. Pooh. Guang Yuan and Li Si-chan spurted out at the same time, feeling that Ling Han had gone mad. Flower blossom tier, weren't these 3 words enough? Under the flower blossom tier, all were ants, and no matter how freakish Ling Han was, he couldn't possibly compare to a flower blossom tier cultivator, unless he ascended to the throne and became the emperor, triggering the great power of a nation, like the Rain Emperor. Would the rock spirit be merciful because you were a heaven-grade alchemist? Obviously not. Young Master Han. Guang Yuan and Li Si-chan both looked nervous. No matter. Ling Han smiled faintly. He had the Black Tower, which was his greatest trump card. Guang Yuan and Li Si-chan obviously thought of it as well. Although they didn't know what the Black Tower was, they only knew that Ling Han could hide in that absolutely safe place in times of danger. After cultivating, Guang Yuan and Li Si-chan also returned to the Black Tower. The massive golem could complete its breakthrough at any time, so they shouldn't be flustered at that time. Sure enough, after only another 2 hours, the massive golem suddenly let out a violent roar. The sound waves soared into the sky and tore apart the clouds, the momentum shockingly terrifying. Its height shrunk to about 3 meters, still much taller than a normal person, but compared to its previous height of 30 meters, it could be said to be a miniature version. Flower blossom tear. This rock spirit already shed its mortal body and stepped into the realm that any living creature yearned for even in their dreams. Different, completely different. This massive golem's aura was like the ocean, and patterns actually appeared on its torso. They were a bit like words, but also a bit like patterns. No matter how one tried, they couldn't be distinguished. Ancient and simple, as if it was an ancient language that existed in the primeval times. The massive golem looked at Ling Han proudly. Although it still didn't evolve its eyes, its feet actually left slowly and floated in the air. Flower blossom tear, able to fly physically. A fat golem floated in the air. This scene was a bit comical. Ling Han laughed loudly, and said, "Blockhead, come and hit me." As he transmitted his thoughts to Small Tower, he said, "You can begin." Small Tower didn't answer, and instead directly unleashed the Black Tower. Wang! A pitch-black pagoda appeared. At first, it was only 3 meters tall, but it immediately expanded, reaching a height of 300 meters. At the bottom, a door opened, revealing a muddled entrance. From the outside, there was nothing but primal chaos, and nothing could be seen. The Black Tower was extremely plain. There weren't any golden characters of the indestructible Heaven's Scroll floating around, nor was there any ancient primeval aura rising. It couldn't be any more ordinary. Ling Han knew that this was Small Tower controlling the circulation of the Black Tower's aura. Otherwise, as long as it leaked out, it would attract the attention of the upper realm's ultimate elites, who would directly break through the realm and enter to snatch the Black Tower. "Big guy, quickly come to the bowl, quickly come to the tower." Phone reading was more refreshing. Chapter 352. In a short while, a great many people ran over and surged into the courtyard. "Junior sister Zitai, how are you? Who molested you? Tell me, I'll tear him into pieces." He even dared to have designs on junior sister Zitai. He must be tired of living. Everyone spoke one after another. Those who could live on this peak were at least in the spiritual ocean tier, and some disciples in their 30s or 40s had already broken through to the spiritual pedestal tier. Among these people, there might be a few flower blossom tier cultivators, or even spiritual infant tier elites. Aoz Tai's popularity was indeed very high. Hearing her shout, so many people actually ran out. Some were even in seclusion, but still came out regardless. Beautiful women had always been a rare resource, and beautiful women who had cultivated were even rarer, not to mention that Aoz Tai was not an ordinary beauty. Aoz Tai was definitely an expert actor. Her previous proud, cold, and emotionless expression had all been put away. She fell to the ground, her face full of tears as she sobbed, "They wanted to molest me, and use force on me. Woo, 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 I don't want to live anymore." Hung, everyone's fury was instantly ignited, and they all glared at Ling Han and Yu Kai Yu, wanting nothing more than to skin the two of them alive. But after all, not everyone was blinded by beauty. Someone said, "That's not very possible. In this place, this was an important place of the Winter Moon sect, and the slightest disturbance would attract the elites of the sect. How is it not possible? Are you doubting junior sister Zitai's words, or her charm?" But this kind of question was immediately drowned out. Perhaps, these two people think so, and that's why they dared to act so violently here. Kill them. Many people's eyes were red. Cough. Yu Kai Yu stood up, and said, "Fellow senior and junior brothers, you all are too arbitrary, disregarding the truth just because of her words. He, others might not dare, but if it's senior brother Yu." Someone said. When the others heard, they all nodded. Yu Kai Yu was Grand Elder Yu's great-grandson, and if he really molested Aoz Tai, then as long as the Yu clan's ancestor was willing to compromise, it was not impossible for Yu Kai Yu to marry Aoz Tai. Thinking of this, many people broke out in cold sweat. Fortunately, they had arrived in time. Now, everyone was blinded by anger. Even if some people tried to maintain a calm heart, it was useless. The weak could not contend against the strong. Capture those two and punish them according to the sect's laws. They all shouted, jumping out one by one. Yukayu can be spared, but that Han Lin must be put to death. What kind of bullshit dares to molest junior sister Zitai? Yes, kill him. Everyone was incomparably furious. Yukayu was a member of the Yu clan, so no one dared to kill him. But Ling Han was different. He was a newcomer who had just been accepted into the sect. Even if he was killed, it would be difficult to offend the public. Who would the sect punish then? Naturally, Aozi had expected this as well, which was why she had used such a devious technique. Ling Han shook his head. For youngsters, beauty was truly a powerful weapon. Just a simple trick had turned these geniuses into hotheads. Even if they were sold, they still had to pay for it. Actually, this was not surprising. These people had always looked up to Zitai, so when they suddenly heard that the goddess of their hearts had almost been violated, they were naturally furious. And when people were enraged, they would naturally lose their rationality. He snorted lightly, and shouted, "A bunch of idiots." With this shout, he had infused a sliver of heaven-tier consciousness into it. It did not have much destructive power, but it directly charged into everyone's consciousness. Instantly, everyone's expressions became dazed, and they calmed down from their violent rage. Something seemed off. Even if Yukayu wanted to violate Aozi, he should not have dragged Ling Han into it. Ling Han gestured at Yukayu, indicating for him to cooperate. He said, the clothes on this woman." With a ripping sound, he began to tear Yukayu's clothes, instantly giving Yukayu a fright. If it was torn, it should look like this. Ling Han raised Yukayu's hand. But that woman's clothes, He paused for a moment, and said, "Senior brother tear the other sleeve yourself." Only now did Yukayu know what Ling Han wanted to do. He hurriedly nodded, and with a ripping sound, he tore the other sleeve. As expected, because the angle of force exerted was different, the way it was torn was also completely different. Shwa, everyone's gaze instantly turned towards Aozi. Being able to cultivate to the spiritual ocean tier, which one of them was an idiot? Previously, they had merely been blinded by beauty and fury, but after being shouted at by Ling Han, they also calmed down, and began to think seriously. The matter of violence did not make sense in the first place, because this was Yukayu's side courtyard, so why would Aozi appear here? On the other hand, if Aozi was trying to frame him, then that would make sense instead. Don't believe the two of them. In order to avoid being blamed, they would naturally make a false countercharge. In the crowd, someone immediately shouted, causing a small portion of the crowd to reveal expressions of fury again, and turn towards Ling Han and Yukayu. Ling Han strode out, his gaze sweeping over the crowd, and said, "Hiding your head and showing your tail, do you think I don't know where you're hiding?" He immediately attacked. Peng, 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 a few people tried to stop him, but were sent flying with a single palm strike. A man was instantly dragged out by him, and Ling Han asked Yukayu, "Senior brother do you recognize this person? He should be Attendant Ao's son, but what's his name?" Yukayu said after some thought. Ao Feng really had too many illegitimate children. Ling Han flung the man to the ground, and said, "Now everyone knows, right? These two people are both from the Ao clan. It's just a thief calling out to catch a thief." It was very obvious that this guy was fanning the flames. Everyone fell silent. None of them were stupid. Aozi could make use of their admiration, but in the end, it was impossible for her to keep deceiving them. Aozi shrieked, "Don't listen to his nonsense. I was almost molested by them, and they even want to slander me. They've gone too far." Ling Han snorted, and once again walked towards Aozi. His slender figure cast a long shadow, enveloping Aozi's body. What are you trying to do? She said in a trembling voice. You framed me and seen your brother you. Don't tell me you don't deserve to be punished. Ling Han said coldly, and his hand moved to suppress Aoz Tai. Stop. Immediately, a few people moved at the same time, attacking Ling Han. It was one thing for Aoz Tai to make use of their feelings, but they clearly knew that they had been deceived, and admiration was not something that could be put down so easily. Naturally, they could not just watch as Ling Han attacked Aoz Tai. Those who stand in my way, good luck. Ling Han said coldly, and unleashed his full battle prowess. Peng, 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 peng. 6 flashes of fist chi rampaged, and the silver dragons and elephants collided. Those who stood in his way were not a match for him at all, and were all sent flying by a single punch of his, as if they were straw that filled the sky. Aoz Tai was greatly shocked, and could no longer care about pretending to cry on the ground. She hurriedly leaped up, wanting to flee into the crowd. There were over 100 spiritual ocean tier martial artists here, and she did not believe that Ling Han could defeat them all in one go. You're quite agile. Ling Han smirked coldly. Using the shadow wind movement technique, he had already appeared behind Aoz Tai. With a clench of his right hand, the woman instantly fell into his grasp. Chapter 353. Who is this guy? How is he so strong? He sent 7 spiritual ocean tier cultivators flying with one punch, and senior brother Lu is at the 6th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Hiss, when did such a freak appear in the sect? Hee, you guys don't know, right? He's a new disciple this year, and he just entered the sect yesterday. Today, he obtained the first place in the entrance exam. What? With the 7 sons of AO family participating, how could the first place fall to someone else? What kind of news is this? The 7 sons of AO family and senior brother Yu were both defeated by him. I think I understand now, no wonder Aoz Tai put on such a show. There were no idiots here. As long as one's brain was clear, it was very easy to think clearly and understand the twists and turns in this matter. Han Lin, let go of junior sister Z Tai first, we can talk things out. Someone pleaded to Ling Han. Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, when you guys ran over just now, you were so aggressive, looking like you wanted to beat me to death. I'm so scared. Everyone was speechless. You're so fierce, even defeating the 7 sons of AO family, who else here could pose a threat to you? But Aoz Tai was still in Ling Han's hands, so he naturally could say whatever he wanted. Junior brother Han, I know you're unwilling, but junior sister Z Tai is the beloved daughter of attendant Ao Feng, and also the great-granddaughter of Grand Elder Ao, someone reminded. Ling Han snickered, and said, senior brother Yu is also the son of Deacon Yu of Yuzhen Shan, and more so the great-grandson of Grand Elder Yu. Yet, this ugly woman did not hesitate at all to frame her. Since she did not give face, senior brother Yu naturally did not need to give face either. Yu Kaiyu instantly gaped. Why was he suddenly dragged into this? But after some thought, he didn't open his mouth to refute. Aoz Tai's actions made him very dissatisfied, and he wanted to make her suffer a little. If he swallowed this insult, wouldn't that mean that the Yu family was inferior to the Ao family? Therefore, when encountering this kind of thing, it was not something that could be tolerated just because he wanted to. This involved the conflict between factions. Junior brother Han, your strength is extraordinary, and I'm afraid that no one in the spiritual ocean tier is a match for you. However, there are so many of us here, and even if you have 2 fists, you won't be able to fight against 4 hands. Why don't you release junior sister Z Tai? The sect will naturally return justice to you and senior brother Yu, someone else said. Ling Han laughed heartily, but turned to Yu Kaiyu and said, senior brother Yu, if we are convicted of sexual assault, what will happen to us? The 3 taboos of martial art, defying one's parents, betraying one's teacher, and committing sexual immorality. Our Winter Moon sect has always been strict with this third taboo. If the crime of rape is really proven, then he will definitely be executed, Yu Kaiyu said after some thought. Ling Han's eyes were cold as he said, I'm actually a very easy person to talk to. If you respect me, I'll respect you back. But I'm also a very vengeful person. I'll take revenge on anyone who treats me badly. Since you want me to die, then why should I let you live? These words were directed at Aoz Tai. Aoz Tai's delicate body involuntarily trembled, and she said, could it be that you dare to kill me? Junior brother Han, don't be impulsive. That's only a hypothesis, after all, Yu Kaiyu hurriedly said. Pooh. Ling Han, however, grabbed the sword in someone else's hand, and with a swipe, fresh blood splattered as Aoz Tai's throat was sliced open. She looked at Ling Han in disbelief as she covered her throat with her hand, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't stop the blood from gushing out. She died just like that. She was only here to vent her brother's anger. She wanted to use her influence among the younger generation to beat Ling Han into a villain who molested women. At that time, public opinion would distort the truth, and how could Ling Han continue staying in the Winter Moon sect? His cultivation would definitely be crippled, and he would be expelled from the sect. Even if the development of the situation exceeded her expectations, she did not panic in the slightest. After all, if one plan failed, there was still a second plan. But unexpectedly, Ling Han was actually so decisive, killing her with a single strike. She was a member of the Ao family, so why did Ling Han dare to? She would never know the reason. The last shred of life left her body, and she fell to the ground with a bang, her beautiful face sticking to the soil. Hiss, there was a collective gasp. Then, many people's eyes turned red as they stared at Ling Han. If you want to fight, I'll keep you company, Ling Han said calmly. His anger was especially great, because he was just about to inquire about his mother's whereabouts when he was forcefully interrupted by Aoz Tai. Moreover, his mother was imprisoned because of the Ao family, and now Aoz Tai wanted to frame him, so his killing intent was naturally burning. He entered the Winter Moon sect to find out his mother's whereabouts, and indeed wanted to obtain the Thunder Battle armor, but that didn't mean that he would submit to humiliation. As an elite of the Heaven tier in his last life, the Alchemy Emperor, would his bones turn soft? At worst, he would give up on the Thunder Battle armor, and as long as his strength increased, could he not flatten the Winter Moon sect and rescue his mother? However, that would take some time, and he wanted to rescue his mother as soon as possible. Han Lin. At least a few dozen people roared angrily with red eyes, their killing intent soaring. No matter what wrong Aoz Tai had done, it was not a crime that deserved death. The death of the goddess in their hearts also caused them to be extremely furious, and they wanted to blast Ling Han into pieces. Yu Kaiyu finally woke up from his shock, and could not help but secretly wipe away the cold sweat on his forehead. This guy was really a little ancestor, actually killing Aoz Tai. What should he do now? The Ao family would not leave the matter at that, however, it only took an instant for him to decide that he would protect Ling Han. The relationship between the Yu family and the Ao family was not bad 20 years ago, even to the extent that they were going to become in-laws, but ever since the incident with Yu Hongchang, the relationship between the two families took a sudden turn for the worse. Now, the two families were targeting each other everywhere, competing with each other, and the Yu family was obviously at a disadvantage. In terms of the middle-aged generation, Ao Feng was a notch above Yuzhen Shan, and in terms of the younger generation, every single one of the 7 sons of Ao clan was stronger than Yu Kaiyu. Fortunately, the older generation had fought to a draw, and the power of the spiritual infant tier was the deciding factor. Thus, even if the Yu family did not have enough power, they could still stand on equal footing with the Ao family, at least while the Yu family's ancestor was still alive. The problem was, if the Yu clan continued to wither like this, or if the younger generation of the Ao clan completely matured, then the Yu clan would definitely be defeated. The Yu family had already worked hard enough. For example, Yu Kaiyu had obviously obtained more cultivation resources than the 7 sons of Ao family, but why was his cultivation still at the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier? He had been suppressing it and not breaking through, consolidating his cultivation, striving to cultivate the spiritual ocean tier to a perfect state. Yu Kaiyu's talent was not bad, but it was not good to the extent of defying the heavens. Moreover, fighting 1 against 7, the chances of victory were extremely slim. However, right at this moment, Ling Han appeared. His talent was nature-defying, and he had the background of an alchemist. More importantly, he had walked on the opposite side of the Ao clan from the very beginning. Thus, Yu Kaiyu wanted to be on good terms with Ling Han. Who knew, he might be a heavy weight in resisting the Ao clan in the future. Now that Ling Han had killed Ao Zitai, on the surface, he had formed an irreconcilable enmity with the Ao clan, but in reality, wasn't this a chance for the Yu family to truly form an alliance with Ling Han? Chapter 354. What do you guys want? Yu Kaiyu immediately shouted in a deep voice. Once he made up his mind, he displayed the boldness of a disciple of a great clan. He killed junior sister Zitai, and we want him to pay with his life, the crowd roared angrily. Impudence! Yu Kaiyu humphed coldly. Is the sect a place for you to fight in private? Whether junior brother Han committed a crime or not, it is naturally up to the sect to decide. How can you make trouble like this? That's right, it should be up to the sect to deal with him. A clear voice rang out. There was already another person on the scene, and no one could tell how he had appeared. Of course, aside from Ling Han. Greetings, Attendant Ao. When everyone saw him, they all clasped their hands in greeting. Ling Han was slightly surprised. This was Ao Feng. He walked over and saw that this was a man in his 40s. He was tall and slender, and his face was as clear as jade. He looked extremely handsome, and had a carefree temperament that could easily move a woman's heart. No wonder he could become a stallion. Indeed, his appearance and temperament were all top-notch. Moreover, Ao Feng's talent in martial art was also quite extraordinary. Now, he already had 1 foot in the flower blossom tier, which was more than a decade earlier than the talented and bold Rain Emperor, so it was clear how talented he was. Of course, there would always be talented people in every generation. Among the 7 sons of Ao family, at least Ao Xinglai's achievements had already surpassed Ao Feng's, and in the whole north region, Lu Yang, Zhu Xian'er, and Zuyuda were even more outstanding. Ao Feng's gaze stopped on Ao Zitai for a long while. He had been dissolute all his life, and had countless illegitimate children. He had only restrained himself in recent years. To be honest, even he himself could not remember the names of all of his descendants. However, there were a few outstanding children that were the flesh and blood of his heart. For example, Ao Xinglai, and Ao Zitai. A mere disciple that had just entered the sect actually dared to kill his beloved daughter. The more furious Ao Feng became, the calmer his expression became. He said calmly, in the sect, private fights are a great taboo. But as an attendant, I should have the authority to deal with it, right, martial nephew Kaiyu? The aura of a spiritual pedestal tier warrior shook, and Yu Kaiyu couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. His opponent already had 1 foot in the flower blossom tier and had a hint of an otherworldly presence, making him feel as pressured as a mountain. Even standing was difficult, and his legs couldn't help but tremble, so how could he still speak? But right at this time, only to see Ling Han take a step across, standing between Ao Feng and Yu Kaiyu, forcefully shouldering this wave of pressure. Yu Kaiyu's body instantly lightened. He couldn't help but feel both grateful and worried, because no matter how freakish Ling Han was, he was still only in the 1st layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Like him, he couldn't possibly withstand the aura of someone half a step into the flower blossom tier. Ling Han, however, was calm and collected. If he wanted to rely on his aura to suppress him, who had once been in the heaven tier, then he would have to first cultivate to the level of the Sword Emperor or the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden. He smiled faintly and said, "How does Deacon Ao plan to punish me?" Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air, secretly admiring him. To be able to be so calm and collected in front of someone who was half a step into the flower blossom tier, this kind of courage definitely surpassed others. Just this point alone was worthy of a big thumbs up. A life for a life, so naturally death, Ao Feng also said faintly. He was half a step into the flower blossom tier, and held the absolute initiative. Ling Han suddenly laughed loudly, and said, "Ao Z Tai conspired, intending to frame and harm me and senior brother Yu. I am the first in the entrance examination this time, and with my talent, breaking through to the spiritual infant tier in the future is nothing difficult. Senior brother Yu is Grand Elder Yu's great-grandson, and what status do we have in the sect? Yet Ao Z Tai wanted to frame us, and become a perverted thief that everyone wants to beat up. Shouldn't this kind of person be sentenced to death?" When everyone heard this, their faces couldn't help but twitch, secretly thinking that they had seen thick-skinned people before, but there really hadn't been one like Ling Han who boasted so much. He actually dared to boast that he would definitely break through to the spiritual infant tier in the future. This tone was really arrogant to the extreme. But those who had seen Ling Han's battle during the day all nodded in agreement. Being able to defeat the 7 sons of the Ao family at the first layer of the spiritual ocean tier, this guy's talent in martial art could only be described as freakish. Moreover, he was already in the first layer of the spiritual ocean tier at the age of 19. In the history of the Winter Moon sect, he would be able to squeeze into the top 100. And among these 100 people, 56 finally broke through to the spiritual infant tier, and 31 reached the 9th layer of the flower blossom tier. And there were 13 people left. It wasn't that they faded into the crowd, but that they had died long ago. Otherwise, they would be able to break through to the flower blossom tier no matter what. History proved that Ling Han indeed had this kind of potential, and was definitely not bragging. Ao Feng was startled. He didn't think that Ling Han could still speak with confidence and composure under his aura, speaking so much eloquently. But he wasn't angered, because he possessed absolute strength, and with such strength, what need was there for anger? "I don't care so much, I only know that you killed my daughter. No one can kill a member of the Ao family, no one." He moved, and hung, a blinding light rose up from behind him. The intent of martial arts spread out, forming what seemed to be a heaven and earth. In this instant, thoughts flew through Ling Han's mind. Use the power boost from the Black Tower, unleash the Demon Birth Sword, and directly kill this enemy, or hide inside the Black Tower and temporarily avoid the brunt of the attack, because he really wanted to leave Ao Feng for Ling Dongxing to personally deal with. However, before he could make up his mind, he saw a massive crimson palm strike over, welcoming Ao Feng's attack. "Hang, the Winter Moon sect isn't your private kingdom, so you can do whatever you want." Hong, violent power surged, forming a ball of brilliant light. When the light dissipated, there was already another person in front of Ling Han. He was also in his 40s, tall and sturdy, with a head full of black hair fluttering in the wind. He withdrew his fist, clasped his hands behind his back, and said, "I feel that the fault lies with Z Tai." As for Han Lin, it can only be said that he was a bit impulsive. Just remember it as a small fault. "Father!" Yu Kai Yu immediately exclaimed in pleasant surprise. What made him even happier was that his father obviously made the same decision as him, wanting to protect Ling Han. "Greetings, Attendant Yu." Everyone bowed again. This time, the person who came was naturally Yuzhen Shan. Ao Feng looked at Yuzhen Shan coldly, and said, "Could it be that my daughter died in vain?" "Hee, my condolences, Brother Ao," Yuzhen Shan said without any sincerity. Although niece Z Tai went overboard, death is the most important thing, so there is no need to pursue the matter any further. Ao Feng was furious, and said darkly, today, if this brat doesn't die, I definitely won't rest. In any case, your son and daughter are so old, so it's not a big deal if a few die, Yuzhen Shan muttered. What? Ao Feng instantly jumped up, and waved his palm in Yuzhen Shan's direction, but it turned into 8 sharp swords. He was a swordsman, so even if he didn't have a sword in his hand, his every movement was filled with sword intent. When they heard Yuzhen Shan's words, quite a few people felt some sympathy for Ao Feng, and thought that the rumors about Yuzhen Shan being a brainless and straightforward person were indeed true. He could even say such words in public. Chapter 355. After a short while, Ling Han smiled. With a shake of his right hand, the blood-sucking origin gold was immediately withdrawn. Shua, a large fish, was also pulled out of the water. It was at least 2 feet long, and was still thrashing its tail when it was out of the water. Compared to the bait of others, the allure of the 100-year-old ginseng was naturally much stronger. Moreover, the fishing line of others could not reach all the way to the center of the lake, and only Ling Han could. Thus, it was a large one from the get-go. Ling Han suddenly had an idea, and said to Small Tower, the inside of the Black Tower can speed up the process of growing spirit grass, then can this kind of fish, which has very strict requirements for the environment, also be able to be raised? If it was possible, he would not eat it for now. If he could raise all these fish inside, it would be equivalent to having an additional treasure trove. No, Small Tower immediately said. Ling Han could not help but feel disappointed. Then he could only catch as much as he could, and even if he could not finish them, he would make them into dried fish and take them all away. He switched to another ginseng, and threw it into the center of the lake. After a short while, he once again had a catch. Because the bait was excellent, Lian Guangyuan and Li Xichan also repeatedly had a catch. However, they were fishing by the side of the lake, so the fish that they caught were not very large. They were only about a foot long, and could not compare to Ling Han's. But even so, the other martial artists fishing by the lake were already red-eyed, and wanted nothing more than to rush over and snatch the fish. But that was a heaven-grade alchemist, so who would dare to make a rash move? If there was no one else here, then so be it, but who would know if they killed him to silence him? Moreover, there was another problem. Ling Han's battle prowess was also extremely shocking. Although he did not participate in the Prodigy tournament, the battle prowess of 20 stars of the spiritual infant tier was terrifying. Even if he borrowed the power of a spirit tool, you would still need a spirit tool of similar level to resist, right? Thus, they could only secretly drool by the side. But there would always be people who were restless. I can't snatch from you, and I can't win against you, but who doesn't know how to cause trouble? The lake water rippled, and a few people actually threw stones into the lake, instantly startling the shoals of fish, which all ran back to the bottom of the lake. Ling Han instantly frowned, and said to Guang Yuan, "Chase those few people away." "Yes, young Master Han." Guang Yuan immediately stood up, seething with killing intent. Returning to the spiritual pedestal tier, his hands were also very itchy. He strode over, his killing intent overflowing. "What do you want to do?" The expression of the troublemaker closest to him instantly changed, and he shouted at Guang Yuan. "I'm telling you to get lost." Guang Yuan moved, and as his fist shot out, there were actually 5 war elephants that surged out, charging towards that person. "Damn it!" That person hurriedly parried the attack and shouted loudly, "Grandmaster Ling, aren't you being too overbearing? This lake doesn't even belong to your family, so what right do you have to make your subordinates act violently? Are you trying to take this place for yourself?" "That's right, too overbearing. Natural treasures naturally belong to everyone in the world, what do you mean by this?" Someone added. This was naturally another troublemaker. "Chasing people away at every turn, that's too much." More troublemakers leaped out, pressing towards Guang Yuan. They naturally did not dare to do anything to Ling Han. He was a heaven-grade alchemist, but Guang Yuan was different. He was only a dog of a heaven-grade alchemist. A dog, so what if he was slaughtered? That was because they all came from large sects, and were full of confidence. It was just like how Yao Huiyu did not take Earth-grade alchemists seriously at all. Though these people were not arrogant to this extent, the possibility of them needing to request a heaven-grade alchemist was practically zero, so why would they need to give him face? The most important thing was that they were still young and aggressive, and Ling Han was too young, which made others jealous. They put a big hat on Ling Han, and stood firmly on the side of reason first. In the future, even if Ling Han made a ruckus to their sects, they would be able to act boldly and confidently. After all, in the North region, what difference was there between a heaven-grade alchemist and an earth-grade mid-level alchemist? Sects respected high-level alchemists, but would definitely not listen to the words of high-level alchemists. Guang Yuan's battle prowess was very strong, but he had just entered the spiritual pedestal tier, after all. Moreover, the breakthrough this time was to return to the spiritual pedestal tier, so he was not able to activate the benefits of the heavenly luck stone. Thus, his battle prowess was only about 4 stars. Against these elite disciples of various great sects, 1 or 2 was still alright, but when the numbers increased, he would not be able to withstand it. Under the siege of 6 people, Guang Yuan was already in imminent danger. Those who did not make trouble were also watching from the side. Ling Han was too young, and they actually had to bow respectfully to such a young man and address him as Grandmaster. They were naturally displeased, and were happy to watch the show. Ling Han's gaze was cold. He suddenly stood up and walked towards the battle. Grandmaster Ling, could it be that you still want to fight personally? A troublemaker said. He was not a character on the prodigy role, but he was extremely conceited, and did not believe that Ling Han had once struck out with battle prowess of 20 stars of the spiritual infant tier. He thought that it was only someone deliberately boasting to flatter Ling Han. Ling Han revealed a cold smile, and said, "Since you guys are not willing to get lost, then all of you can stay here." With a shake of his right hand, the demon birth sword was already unleashed. With a slash, the troublemaker's head immediately flew into the air. Pooh! Fresh blood spurted madly from the head and neck, surging more than 3 meters high before falling back. Pa! The head fell to the ground, and there was still an expression of disbelief on his face. He had never thought that Ling Han would actually suddenly make a killing move. He was a disciple of the Blood Flame Valley, and came from the strongest sect in the North region. Anyone would have to think twice before making a move. This bloody massacre instantly intimidated everyone. The disciples of the Blood Flame Valley were killed just like that, which meant that Ling Han did not have the slightest bit of scruples. Could a heaven-grade alchemist really be so willful? Ling Han walked towards Guang Yuan's battle group. His killing intent overflowed, causing the 6 troublemakers to simultaneously feel pressured, and they could not help but withdraw and retreat. However, it was already too late. Ling Han's sword slashed out, firing out 6 flashes of sword chi, slicing towards the 6 people separately. Pu, Piu, 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 the 6 people did not even have the slightest ability to resist, and were instantly sliced into 2. Severed limbs and heads were scattered everywhere, and blood was everywhere. Everyone was terrified. The status of alchemists was transcendent, and a large part of the reason was that they did not participate in the conflicts of interest between martial artists, so they could be transcendent. Otherwise, if there was competition, there would be conflict, so how could they be transcendent? There had never been any alchemists who participated in the competition for treasures, because alchemists all understood that the reason why their status was transcendent was because they isolated themselves from the competition for benefits. But Ling Han was so fearless. Not only did he enter the mystery realm, his actions were decisive and ruthless, making people tremble in fear. The 7 troublemakers were all executed. Ling Han sheathed his sword, swept a cold glance over everyone, and returned to his original spot, continuing to fish. He could act as if nothing had happened, but the others couldn't. Those 7 corpses with severed heads and arms still laid there, who could turn a blind eye to it? Some people even started to tremble, fearing that Ling Han's murderous nature would erupt and kill them all to silence them. These people left quietly, but some people were reluctant to give up on the absolute cold ice heart fish, still fishing there. Phone reading was more refreshing. Chapter 356. On the second day, Ling Han still obtained the Thunder Battle Armor, making him very happy. Firstly, the Thunder Battle Armor was indeed a precious treasure. Back then, Zi Shuexian had worn it like it was a treasure, and secondly, it was precisely because this was a spirit tool used by an old friend that Ling Han was filled with nostalgia. He had crossed over 10,000 years to be reborn, and the whole world was filled with strangers. Seeing an old item of someone from the past, how could he not be overwhelmed with emotions? Then let's go to the Dark Demon Forest, Ling Han decided. He came to the Winter Moon sect mainly to find out his mother's whereabouts, cause trouble for the AO family, and steal some good stuff along the way, and now these 3 goals were basically achieved. He gathered quite a lot of spirit herbs, obtained the Thunder Battle Armor, defeated the 7 sons of the AO family, and killed AO Zi Tai. Finally, since Yu Kai Yu was going with him, there would naturally be a lot of opportunities to get information out of him. This cousin of his was similar to his uncle, they were both very straightforward and couldn't hide any secrets. Thus, after obtaining the Thunder Battle Armor, Ling Han decided to be on his way. Yu Kai Yu went with him, looking very excited. As it turned out, this guy had only gone out to train twice, and both times were not far from the Winter Moon sect. He had never truly gone far. Ling Han sighed. This guy said he wanted to help, but the best result was that he didn't hold him back. He and Yu Kai Yu set out, going all the way down the mountain. Ling Han. However, when they arrived at the foot of the mountain, they suddenly heard a voice behind them that was filled with resentment. This voice was Feng Yan's. Ling Han didn't turn around. He was Han Lin now, not Ling Han. You actually still have the guts to come here? Die! Feng Yan roared in fury, drew his saber, and slashed towards Ling Han. Xiu, 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 6 flashes of saber chi actually appeared at the same time, turning into 6 sharp blades that gleamed with a cold light, slashing towards Ling Han. This guy also improved very quickly. When he was in the Rain Country, he had only formed 4 flashes of saber chi, but now, he had shockingly formed 6 flashes. After one of his legs was crippled by Ling Han, he had received a huge shock, and it had instead advanced his comprehension of the way of the saber. Shua, cold chi filled the air, and the sharp saber chi cut through the air, extremely terrifying. Are you crazy? Because he was standing next to Ling Han, Yu Kai Yu was naturally within the attack range of this attack. Moreover, the name that Feng Yan had called out was rather baffling, so he naturally would not associate it with Ling Han. He only thought that he had encountered a madman, and immediately threw out a punch. His arms immediately turned into black iron. The will of martial art transformed into vein-like patterns that glowed on his arms. 6 flashes of fist chi gushed out. Bam! The fist landed on the blade, and the fist chi collided with the blade chi, annihilating each other. Feng Yan's gaze turned cold, and he asked, "Who are you, and why are you standing up for this person?" Yu Kai Yu walked over, and could not help but be surprised, because this person was actually a cripple. He had obviously lost one of his legs, and now had a prosthetic one. What was revealed at the bottom of his trousers was a piece of silver-white metal that was shaped like a disc, supporting itself on the ground. He then swept his gaze over the symbol on Feng Yan's sleeves, and could not help but be even more surprised. He mumbled, "When did our Winter Moon sect take in cripples? Moreover, isn't this cripple very powerful?" He spoke straightforwardly. This cripple was the truth, and actually did not have any derogatory meaning, but in Feng Yan's ears, this cripple was filled with malice. "You're courting death." Feng Yan's gaze turned sharp, and he was about to strike again. Ling Han turned around and said, "Is there something wrong with you? The moment you come, you start fighting and killing. Where are the rules of the sect?" Feng Yan was startled. His back view of Ling Han was 100% similar to that of his great enemy, but why was it that when he turned around, there was such a huge difference? This young man could almost be considered a young man. His appearance was nothing special, and was worlds apart from Ling Han's appearance. But why did his voice give him a very familiar feeling, and his back view was extremely similar to Ling Han's? Moreover, his expression and the tone of his words were also filled with an air that he loathed. "I've mistaken you for someone else." Thoughts flew through his mind, but in the end, they all turned into this sentence. "Crazy!" Yu Kai-yu glared at him fiercely. He was the eldest grandson of the Yu clan, yet he was mysteriously ambushed by someone, which made him very displeased. But when he thought of his and Ling Han's mission, he temporarily did not have the time to bicker with Feng Yan, so he said, "I have something to do now, I'll settle the score with you when I return." As he spoke, he pulled Ling Han and left. Looking at Ling Han's back view, killing intent surfaced on Feng Yan's face again. He turned his head to look at a disciple on the side of the road, and asked, "Who are these two people?" "Who are you? Why should I tell you?" That disciple raised his head and said, very displeased with Feng Yan's attitude. Feng Yan's eyes became fierce, and he emitted a frightening killing intent, instantly causing that disciple to tremble in fear. He hurriedly said, "The older one is Yu Kai-yu, senior brother Yu. He is Grand Elder Yu's great-grandson, and the other one is called Han Lin. He just entered the sect 2 days ago, but is just a troublemaker. As soon as he arrived, he killed attendant Ao's beloved daughter. Now, he is being punished to enter the dark demon forest to gather fire-sun grass." Feng Yan's right index finger instantly flicked, and killing intent circulated. Han Lin, Ling Han, wasn't that the exact opposite? Moreover, a newly joined disciple was so daring that he dared to kill the attendant's daughter. This was very much in line with Ling Han's personality. He immediately soared up and headed towards the White Cloud main peak. This was the place where all the higher-ups of the Winter Moon sect resided. To enter here, one had to be at least in the spiritual pedestal tier, or the personal disciple of a spiritual infant or flower blossom tier elite. Even Yu Kai-yu did not have the right to live here. Feng Yan found the place where the information of the sect's disciples was registered, and directly took out Grand Elder Shi's token, requesting for Ling Han's information. Suspicions were just suspicions, after all, he wanted concrete evidence. Han Lin, 19 years old, from Return Cloud Mountain, first layer of the spiritual ocean tier when he entered the sect. Feng Yan said, revealing a cold smile at the corner of his lips, and said, "Send someone to Return Cloud Mountain to verify this person's information." "Young Master Yan, this is making a big fuss over a minor issue, isn't it? If I tell you to go, then go. Do you want me to ask my master to come and talk to you?" "I wouldn't dare." When Feng Yan walked out, his expression was dark. "Han Lin, if you really are Ling Han, I will definitely have you die in the Winter Moon sect, because you are seeking your own death by hiding your identity. If I kill you, I will only be killing a minor character called Han Lin." Humph. Ling Han and Yu Kai-yu set off, heading towards Sea Breeze City. This trip to the Dark Demon Forest would take an unknown amount of time, so he naturally had to call Lu Yutong and the others first. Yu Kai-yu didn't know anyone anyways. To avoid being targeted by Ao Feng, Yuzhen Shan even personally escorted them. Only after leaving Yulong Mountain for a long time and not finding any traces of Ao Feng did he return to the Winter Moon sect. Because if Ao Feng lost a daughter, then so be it. He had quite a few more anyway, but he only had this one son. The two of them arrived at Sea Breeze City. This was a super large city, more than a dozen times larger than the imperial city of Rain Country. The city walls that were more than 100 meters tall cast a long shadow, and the whole city was like a giant crawling beast. "Let's go find a few friends first," Ling Han said. All right, Yukayu said without any ulterior motives. He was not afraid of being sold out by Ling Han. Chapter 357. Ling Han soon found the inn where Lu Yutong and the others were. Coincidentally, Lu Yutong and Li Si-chan were coming down with Hun Yo, looking like they were going to eat something. It was almost noon, so they could have lunch. Wow, two beauties. Yukayu immediately whistled. Ling Han rolled his eyes, and said, their faces are covered with a white veil, and you know they're beauties. Hee, trust my judgment. If I say they're beauties, they're definitely beauties. Yukayu patted Ling Han's shoulder, and said with a smile, wait here, let brother Yu show you how to pick up girls. Ling Han's expression was strange, and he said, you're going to pick up the two of them. One is not too little, two is not too much. You should learn, Sai, you're so dark, and though you're not ugly, you're far from handsome. You won't be able to learn brother Yu's skills. Yukayu shook his head. Ling Han laughed, and said, aren't you afraid of hurting my fragile heart by saying that? As a person, the most important thing is to face reality. You indeed don't look that good, and you're far from the handsome brother Yu. Forget it, I won't talk to you about brother Yu's ability to pick up girls. Yukayu strode towards Lu Yutong and the others. But after a short while, he returned dejectedly, looking dispirited. What? Ran into a rebuff. Ling Han glanced over, and saw that Hun Yo was still baring her fangs and brandishing her claws at Yukayu, but when she caught his gaze, the little girl couldn't help but tilt her neck, and look left and right at him. This girl's intuition was a bit frightening. Even Lu Yutong and Li Si-chan had not noticed the slightest bit of abnormality after he had changed his appearance, but Hun Yo seemed to have discovered that there was something different about him, though she had not confirmed it yet. Don't mention it, let's drink, and we won't go home until we're drunk. Yukayu looked like he had fallen in love. Ling Han smiled and said, do you want me to show you what it means to pick up girls? Ha, ha. Yukayu naturally didn't believe him. He gave him a fake smile and said, if you can sit with them, then I'm convinced. What's so difficult about that? Ling Han patted him on the shoulder and said, go find a seat first. I'll bring them over later. Yukayu burst into laughter and said, Junior Apprentice Brother Han, I really admire your battle prowess, but your ability to brag seems to be even more awesome. All right, if you can bring them over, I'll call you Big Brother in the future. That's what you said. Don't regret it. Ling Han shook his head. I said so. You can go now. Yukayu looked like he was not going to see her off. Without another word, Ling Han walked over to the table where Lu Yutong and Li Si-chan were sitting. Yukayu, on the other hand, found an empty table and sat down. Naturally, a waiter came over to ask him what he wanted to order. How big could the inn's restaurant be? In just a few steps, Ling Han arrived in front of Lu Yutong and Li Si-chan's table. Ladies, can I sit down? Ling Han said with a smile. Lu Yutong and Li Si-chan both revealed displeased expressions. Even though their faces were covered with white veils, it was still possible to see that their willowy eyebrows were furrowed. It wasn't that they hadn't seen lechers before, but it was the first time they had seen someone so daring as to directly ask to sit with them. No. Li Si-chan said coldly. Meanwhile, Lu Yutong directly extended a slender finger and pointed in the direction of the main entrance, which obviously meant, get lost. Yukayu laughed loudly. He'd hit a snag, so he obviously didn't believe that Ling Han, this dark-skinned and unattractive guy, would succeed. Otherwise, wouldn't it mean that his charm was too bad, even inferior to Ling Han's? Ling Han wasn't discouraged, and said to Hun Yo, little beauty, can I sit next to you? Hun Yo didn't say another word, and directly shifted her butt, making space on the long bench that was originally occupied by one person. Pooh! This time, it was Lu Yutong and Li Si-chan's turn to spurt out. They originally thought that Hunyou would ignore them even if she didn't explode, and they were even prepared to hold Hunyou back to prevent the little girl from hurting anyone. But they never imagined that the little girl would actually have this kind of reaction. Was Hunyou bewitched? Under the two girls' dumbfounded gazes, Ling Han sat down. He knew that Hunyou had already recognized him. He laughed mischievously, and started to tease Hunyou. The little girl was also very cooperative, and soon squeezed into his arms, acting coquettishly. Pa! The chopsticks in Yukaiyu's hand involuntarily fell onto the table, and his face twitched. Fuck, after all the planning, he'd missed a little girl. Great beauties certainly wouldn't like Ling Han, this dark-skinned and unattractive type, but little girls wouldn't know what a handsome guy was. He'd never thought that junior brother Han would be so popular with children. Thankfully, he only sat at the same table as the two great beauties, and couldn't possibly bring them over. There was no need to call Ling Han big brother. He almost failed miserably in an easy task. Lu Yutong and Li Si-chan were very surprised. Hunyou was extremely repulsed by strangers, and if it weren't for her relationship with Ling Han, even they wouldn't be able to get close to this little girl. But why would an unfamiliar man make Hunyou so defenseless, acting so coquettishly and passionately, as if the other party was Ling Han? Could it be? The two girls' beautiful eyes lit up. They both knew that Ling Han disguised himself and went to the Winter Moon sect, then this young man in front of them, Ling Han is bad, leaving for so long and not playing with Nyou. At this moment, they heard Hunyou bite Ling Han's hand, and said very discontentedly. As expected. The two girls finally came to a realization, and secretly felt ashamed. They were extremely in love with Ling Han, but their sweetheart was right in front of them, yet they didn't recognize him. On the other hand, Hunyou recognized him at a glance. How could they endure this? Ling Han smiled faintly, rubbed Hunyou's hair, and said, Okay, I'll play with Nyou more in the future. Hunyou knew how to act coquettishly, but definitely wouldn't act unreasonable. She immediately cracked a smile and gave Ling Han a sweet smile. Fuck, could this girl be a vixen in disguise? She was too cunning. In that case, Ling Han would definitely feel apologetic, and he'd have to pamper this girl even more in the future. The two girls looked at each other, both on guard. They definitely couldn't be careless because Hunyou was young, because the little girl would soon become a big girl. With Hunyou's jealousy, at that time, the two of them probably wouldn't even be able to get within 10 meters of Ling Han. Ling Han nodded at the two girls, and said, I'm called Han Lin now. The guy over there is my cousin, but he doesn't know my identity. You two, follow me. Lu Yutong and Li Si-chan were instantly extremely shy, but they both stood up and followed Ling Han towards Yukaiyu. Pa, the chopsticks that Yukaiyu had just picked up not long ago fell onto the table again. His face twisted, and his eyeballs almost popped out. How was this possible? They were really tricked by this guy. This junior brother Han didn't have any outstanding features on his left or right. Could it be that women nowadays like this kind of dark and ordinary type? Chapter 358. Ling Han sat down, holding Hunyou in his arms. The little girl acted coquettishly, clinging to him and refusing to come down at all. Lu Yutong and Li Si-chan sat on either side of him, and the four of them happened to occupy the four corners of the table. Senior brother Yu, come on, you'll have to change the way you address me in the future, Ling Han said with a smile. Yukaiyu was driven mad. He turned to Li Si-chan, and said, Did this guy promise you some benefits to have you two sit here? I'm telling you, this guy is a swindler, poor and ugly. In order to protect his senior brother's face, he could not care less, and began to insult Ling Han. Li Si-chan took off her veil, and instantly, her exquisite features were revealed. She was like a fairy, pleasing to the eye. She smiled faintly, and said, I've disappointed senior brother you, but I did it willingly. Lu Yutong was not to be outdone, and similarly took off her veil, and said, Me too. They wore veils because they did not want to attract trouble because of their beauty, but now that Ling Han had returned, they naturally had nothing to fear. Yu Kaiyu's mouth involuntarily gaped. He had already expected that the two girls were great beauties, but he had not thought that they would be beautiful to such an extent, completely not inferior to Aoz Tai. Thankfully, he was not someone who could not move his feet when he saw a beauty, and quickly came back to his senses. He gave a thumbs up to Ling Han, and said, You're awesome, I'm convinced. Hee, don't tease senior brother you, Lu Yutong said to Ling Han. Yu Kaiyu was dazed, and immediately came to a realization, and said, So they are your friends. Ling Han laughed loudly, and said, Senior brother you is finally smart for once. Fuck, I was wondering how your charm could be so great, being able to win over two great beauties at first sight. So you already knew each other. Yu Kaiyu shook his head repeatedly, but also breathed a sigh of relief. It was not that his charm was inferior to Ling Han's, but there was another reason. Moreover, since they already knew each other, the bet just now naturally didn't count. Ling Han was only joking with Yu Kaiyu. He said to Lu Yutong, Brother Guang, Ken Yi, and Wu Jiu. Wu Jiu and Ken Yi ate first, but Brother Guang. Li Si-chan paused for a moment. He seemed to have suffered some kind of blow, and has been listless for a few days now. Ling Han nodded and said, I'll go later. But first, I have to get senior brother you drunk. Why did you get me drunk? Yu Kaiyu asked innocently. Isn't it worth getting drunk to be able to see two beauties? Ling Han laughed. Hee, then let's drink until we're drunk. Yu Kaiyu was a forthright person. 9 out of 10 people who were forthright were greedy, so he immediately slammed the table and said, Waiter, bring some good wine. However, his forthrightness didn't last long. With Ling Han and the other two taking turns to pour wine on him, he very quickly became drunk. His head swayed, and he couldn't even tell how many people there were in Ling Han and the others. Ling Han got a room and helped Yu Kaiyu inside. He wanted to continue investigating his mother's whereabouts. My auntie is locked in the Blackwater prison. Yu Kaiyu couldn't keep secrets when he was drunk. He said it as soon as he asked, causing Ling Han to shake his head. In the future, he either had to hide important things from him, or he couldn't let him drink. Otherwise, it was as if this guy's mouth didn't have a mouth, and he would spill everything. Where is the Blackwater prison? What kind of environment is it? Ling Han asked. At the same time, there was anger in his heart. His mother was actually locked in a prison, making him want to go berserk. The Blackwater prison is where our sect imprisons criminals. Most of them are our sect's enemies, and there are also some disciples who betrayed our sect. Yu Kaiyu shook his head. When I was young, I could still go to auntie, but those bastards from the AO clan kept on squeezing. 3 years ago, auntie was sent to the Blackwater prison, and I haven't been able to see auntie since. Woo, my poor auntie, separated from her husband, and locked in that place where there's no daylight, those bastards from the AO clan, when I cultivate to the spiritual infant tier, I'll strangle one to death if I see one. Ling Han nodded. This cousin was on his side. How's the defense of the Blackwater prison? You want to break into the prison? Impossible. Yu Kaiyu shook his head repeatedly as if he was going to shake his head off. There are 2 flower blossom tier elites taking turns to keep watch, and even a fly can't fly in. Ling Han couldn't help but knock on the table. Come, he had to at least have the battle prowess of the flower blossom tier to be able to break into the Blackwater prison and rescue his mother. Damn it, he clearly knew that his mother was locked in the prison suffering, but he could only sit. Yu Kaiyu's alcohol tolerance wasn't bad, and he wouldn't go crazy after getting drunk, quickly falling asleep. Ling Han left the room to find Lu Yutong and the others. Zhu Wujiu and Can Yi already knew of his arrival, and were waiting for him. Ling Han was concerned about their cultivation advancement, then took out Restore Origin pills and distributed them. He was never stingy towards his own people. Later, I'll teach you guys some new martial arts techniques. You guys can strengthen your foundations, and then you'll be qualified to be called elites, Ling Han said. Since these people were all going to follow him, he naturally had to raise their abilities. Ling Han went to Guang Yuan again. This originally boorish guy actually shut himself in his room for many days like a young lady. It was really a bit strange. He pushed open the door and entered, seeing Guang Yuan sitting blankly, a bit lost in thought. Brother Guang Yuan. Ling Han stretched out his hand and waved it in front of the other. Guang Yuan reacted after a while. When it came to Ling Han, he was first startled, revealing a vigilant expression, and then said hesitantly, Ling Han, it's me. Ling Han nodded. What's wrong with you? What are you thinking so deeply? Guang Yuan hesitated again and again. He wanted to say it, but didn't seem to know how to start. In the end, he sighed, and said, I met someone. Old lover. Ling Han said with a smile. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so lost. In this world, perhaps only the word love could torture people like this. Guang Yuan smiled bitterly, and said, it's the man of my old lover. This development wasn't so wonderful. Guang Yuan started a new topic, as if he also wanted to vent the frustration in his heart. No matter how hard he tried, he could not stop himself, and began to talk incessantly. When I was still young, I left Rain Country and traveled the North region, seeking a way to become stronger. In this period of time, I met two people, both lone cultivators. The three of us formed a group and traveled the world, sharing life and death with each other. One of them was called Duan Zhengji, and the other was called Nong Qingyu. Duan Zhengji and I were brothers, and at the same time, we fell in love with Qingyu. In order not to hurt our friendship, Duan Zhengji and I agreed to have a martial arts competition, and whoever lost would withdraw from the competition. In that half a year, I cultivated madly, and was confident that I could win against Duan Zhengji. But a few days before the competition, Qingyu came to me and told me that she had already made her decision, and had chosen Duan Zhengji. I naturally had no choice but to withdraw, but not long after, Duan Zhengji got drunk. Only then did I know that he had obtained Qingyu through some shameful means, forcing her to choose him. I was furious, and gave Duan Zhengji a beating. Then, I went to find Qingyu, and said that I didn't mind the relationship between her and Duan Zhengji, as long as she was willing to leave with me. But she didn't agree. I was disheartened, and returned to Rain Country. In the blink of an eye, 20 years had passed. A few days ago, I actually met Duan Zhengji, and he said that Qingyu had already been dead for 3 years. Chapter 359. A few minutes later, the woman came out from the pavilion, and couldn't help but look confused. She clearly remembered that there were several damaged pavilions and pavilions nearby, so why were they all gone now? She hadn't even finished her thought when she saw Ling Han had already swam over. With a wave of his hand, the pavilion behind her disappeared. The woman's face was filled with confusion. So those pavilions and pavilions had all been taken away by Ling Han. But she was immediately given a fright. A pavilion was taken away just like that. Just how big was this spatial ring of yours? Ling Han, however, didn't care. Even if everyone knew that his spatial ring was very big, so what? Could it be that they would still dare to snatch it? To offend a heaven-grade alchemist for a spatial spirit tool, no matter how big the spatial ring was, it wasn't worth it. Of course, if they knew the true use of the Black Tower, then putting aside the fact that Ling Han was only a heaven-grade alchemist, even immortals would rush over to snatch it. Ling Han began to excavate the underground buildings, and only the heads of quite a few of them were revealed. 1, 2, 3, he took great joy in collecting them. Even if it was all for nothing, it wouldn't waste too much time, but if there was some sort of harvest, then the profit would be great. He discovered a roof, and casually put it away, yet discovered that the roof was still there, and hadn't been taken into the Black Tower. He tried again, but still to no avail, which made him feel strange. Taking a closer look, this roof really was somewhat different. It was a pointed roof, and the entire roof was a single piece. There were no tiles, and it was golden in color. Why couldn't it be taken into the Black Tower? Ling Han waved his hands, and instantly, pieces of sand rose up at the bottom of the lake, as if a flood dragon had come, twisting the entire bottom of the lake into a mess, turning it extremely turbid. It was difficult to see one's own fingers even if one stretched out his hand. Yet Ling Han was more and more astonished. At the bottom of the lake, more and more parts of this building were revealed. The golden walls were completely different from the other buildings, and they had already dug down about 9 meters, but still hadn't revealed the entire building. What was strange was that this building was actually triangular. The deeper one dug down, the larger the exposed area of the building. That earlier was only the apex of the pointed cone. What was even more strange was that Ling Han still hadn't reached a single window, as if what he had dug out was a complete piece of metal, only that it was ridiculously large. He became more and more curious, and the girl on the side also became interested, beginning to dig on the other side. The soil in the lake was loose, and these two people were both in the spiritual pedestal tier, so their strength was astonishing. Very soon, they had dug down to 300 feet, and more of this golden building was revealed. However, they still hadn't reached the bottom, and the building still had no windows or doors. Strange. More and more people were attracted over, and there weren't many absolute cold ice heart fish left in the lake. Thus, after a bout of fighting, everyone also ended their fishing and turned their gazes over. Truly rare, there was actually such a building at the bottom of the lake. Everyone made a move, digging towards the bottom of the lake. After digging down for close to 3,000 feet, they finally dug to the bottom, revealing the true appearance of this building. Divine Temple, Ling Han murmured. He had seen such a description in ancient records. In the Divine Realm, there was this kind of three-sided conical building, mostly used for sacrifices, but also used for other purposes. The Golden Divine Temple was vast and majestic, and the 3,000 feet high seat was completely integrated. Ling Han didn't know if the vast lands had this kind of building ability, but if this was something from the Divine Realm, then it was another matter. There was a door on each of the 3 sides of the Divine Temple. It was a full 30 feet tall and 15 feet wide, and the golden door was practically integrated with the walls. If it wasn't for the various animal totems carved on the door, it would really be very difficult to discover. Ling Han stood in front of the door on one side. Guang Yuan and Yu Kai Yu had already come over, and were similarly extremely curious. There were many animals on the door that Ling Han had never seen before. Were they creatures from the Divine Realm? And on the other side, someone couldn't help but reach out and push the door. Hung, long, long. Instantly, the 3 doors opened at the same time, revealing 3 dark passageways. The lake water instantly flowed backwards, pouring into the Divine Temple. The Divine Temple seemed to have become a sky-swallowing giant whale, emitting a powerful suction force. A few people weren't on guard and were immediately sucked into the temple, while the majority hurriedly pushed the water flow, rising towards the surface of the lake. The suction force was astonishing. In a mere 10 minutes or so, the entire lake had completely disappeared, turning into a gigantic pit. A divine temple stood there, exuding a dazzling golden light as if it was forged from pure gold. Although martial artists viewed gold and silver as dung, such a large pile of dung towering in front of them was still shocking. When all the lake water had disappeared, the divine temple no longer produced a suction force, and just stood there quietly like a monument, causing people to instinctively feel reverence from the bottom of their hearts. Everyone cried out in surprise. Who would have thought that such a grand and strange building was actually hidden at the bottom of the lake? Ling Han, however, was very careful. Previously, a few people had been sucked into the divine temple along with the lake water, but now they didn't appear. What did this mean? Firstly, it was incomparably dangerous inside. They were trapped, and even dead. Secondly, there were a lot of secret treasures in the divine temple. Thus, those few people were in the process of collecting them, and had no intention of coming out. Which one was it? Ling Han's curiosity was burning endlessly. He decided to go in and take a look. This wasn't just one person's idea. Some people had already begun to form their own cliques, and wanted to enter as a group. It could be incomparably dangerous inside, and if they had secret treasures, their chances of success would be higher if they teamed up. And it was in this little time that more people rushed over from afar, and the number of people increased again. Are you guys going in or not? Ling Han asked Yu Kai-yu and Guang Yuan. Li Si-chan also walked over. Of course we're going in, Yu Kai-yu said hurriedly. If young Master Han wants to go in, then I will definitely follow, Guang Yuan said. All right, let's go in, Ling Han said with a smile. He had the Black Tower, so no matter what, he would be able to protect everyone's lives. Let's go. The four of them set out, and climbed down along the walls of the lake. This was a height of 3,000 meters, and now the water below had long since dried up, revealing the eerie white rocks below. If they directly jumped down, the possibility of falling and having their bones crushed was the highest. Li Si-chan was only in the gushing spring tier, so she climbed very slowly. Ling Han simply picked her up by the waist, and using only one hand to climb, he was even more agile than Yu Kai-yu and Guang Yuan put together, heading towards the bottom of the lake at an incredible speed. Now, this great lake was completely an abyss. This was a cliff, but a wet cliff, and it was mainly made of mud. If one was not careful, they could slip and fall down. It was only a matter of a few minutes, and Ling Han was the first to arrive at the bottom of the lake. He put Li Si-chan down. This beauty's cheeks were already flushed, and her beautiful eyes were like spring water, tender and alluring. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.